Podmortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers, free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their multi-award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings, both in person and via Zoom, that were graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we're looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Salutations! Welcome to Podmortem. I'm Reneé Hunter Vasquez, joined as always by my co-host, my husband, and my brother.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
Hi, I'm Travis Hunter Sayapin.
This week, we're recording live from an abandoned train station discussing the 1990s psychological horror film, Jacob's Ladder. This film was directed by Adrian Lyne and written by Bruce Joel Rubin. Its origins steeped in rejection and cancellation, this film defied odds by seeing the light of day. Jacob's Ladder sets itself apart by tackling themes of conspiracy, trauma, and mortality with a heart-wrenching story, painstaking performances, and deeply disturbing imagery. With its secrets and subversions, and serving as an inspiration for a myriad of movies, TV shows, and video games, Jacob's Ladder is a film that begs to be experienced. This film was suggested to us by friends of the show, Kristen Lofton, Karima Rhodes, Maggie H., Dana Graham Hall, Mike H., Halisa, Tanner Rutgers, Livy Fun, and Martin Shaw. We want to thank all of them for their support as well as this suggestion. So, what did you guys think of Jacob's Ladder the first time you saw it?
This was the first time I had watched this movie. I think I would get this mixed up for some reason with The People Under the Stairs. And this is not that movie. But I had always heard about this. But I've never seen it, didn't know nothing. I think I did know that Tim Robbins was in this movie, and that was completely it. Watching it for the show, the movie is nuts. There's a lot going on. It is one of those movies where you need to pay attention, not in a bad way, but like just watching it and kind of experiencing what's happening. The movie kind of points you in the direction of what's going on. There was a lot. I was very, very, when shit goes nuts, I was like, oh my God. Like it was, I don't want to say jarring because I don't want it to feel like it was a bad experience. It was just very like mind, like, oh, now I'm over here. Okay, wait, hold on. I haven't had time to breathe with what's happening over here. Now where are we? But this was a really good movie. And I honestly probably would watch it again.
No, I think that I would honestly say that I love this movie.
Yeah.
I think that what captivates me so much about it is just how much it leans into the weirdness of certain imagery and just the way that certain scenes unfold in such a chaotic and uncomfortable way.
Yeah.
It is a very uncomfortable movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that the first time I ever watched it, I watched it with Dad.
Okay.
And it was because I was just starting to get into like weird and surreal films. I remember I had watched Lost Highway, David Lynch. I watched Mulholland Drive before I really understood it or appreciated it. And I was just asking Dad, I was like, what else is there that's kind of out there?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, have you seen Jacob's Ladder? I was like, I don't know what that is. And so we watched it together. And that's all I really remember from it the first watch is just the weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
But rewatching it for the show, you get so much more of it with, I guess, a more adult mind.
Yeah.
Because there's things that you notice, there's things that you appreciate, there's different aspects of filmmaking, like the way that certain things are shot or the use of music at certain moments.
Mm-hmm.
And the horror of it is brilliant. It works so well for me. And just this feeling as if anything could happen at any time and you can't even trust any part of anything, which is a really difficult place to be as a viewer because anything can happen, but it's also exciting.
Yeah.
But I feel like for me, it did work the most in those nightmarish sequences, the strange happenings that only kind of become explained later on as it continues.
Yeah.
But I think that is where my issue with the film is the explanation of it all.
Okay.
I like a little more to where you have the opportunity to form what you think could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a little too on the nose with a lot of the narrative, which kind of is a little frustrating for me because I like to arrive at things. I don't really need to be told everything.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The movie points you in the direction where you need to be.
And there's even a moment really early on where like Jacob will say something and you're like, yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching the movie. Like I see it. But I think and the ending that we get to, it is very clear because of those points in these directions. But it's also for me a little anticlimactic despite it being really a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
I feel like it feels like a missing reel connecting what the fuck we just saw and then the ending of the film.
Yes.
And I would like to have a little more connective tissue there.
I think that's very fair. I love this movie a lot. To borrow a phrase from my husband, it is right up my ass. It is bleak. It's dramatic. It's surreal. It's everywhere. I had only seen it once before, and I am the one that insisted that we cover it.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I started scripting this, I was like, I probably should have watched this again. Because I remembered so little. I just really remembered the way that it made me feel. And I think that because I watched it with Kristen the only other time that I had watched it. And I think that it was just maybe it came up because we were looking for like a mindfuck movie because she and I are both fans of such. And we watched it and both of us were completely blown away. And it was one of those things where the feeling really stayed with me. And I remembered some visuals from it. But as far as like the complete story, we cover so many films that I don't even think that Podmortem was a thing yet when I watched it the first time.
Okay.
And then, like some stuff gets dumped. We watch a lot of shit. And like I said, starting the script, I was like, oh no, like what have I gotten us into? But I'm glad that we covered it. I still really, really love it. I think that I have really one problem with it. And I think that my issue sounds both nitpicky and world breaking depending on how you look at it. Obviously we can't talk about it till the end, but I think that my issue is kind of there are two messages being conveyed simultaneously, and sometimes that works, but these two particular things in this film are kind of at odds with each other. In my opinion, I don't think that you can really have both. But we will talk about it and we'll explore it a little bit. But before we do that, I would like to get into a little bit of production.
Cool.
We'll start with Bruce Joel Rubin, the writer. So he spent 2 years in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in Nepal. He came back and wrote 2 screenplays. He wrote Ghost. Yeah, that Ghost. Yes. And then he said he had a nightmare where he had fallen asleep on the subway in New York. And when he got off his train, all of the gates were locked and he was stuck down there. So inspired by this nightmare and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as well as his own spiritual journey and his insight from living a meditative life, he wrote Jacob's Ladder in 1980.
What a jumping off point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jacob's Ladder was featured in American Film Magazine as one of the 10 best unproduced screenplays. And he had been trying to sell it for a while, but it wasn't until then that he really started to get attention for it. But it was mostly, he said, from low budget studios who wanted to keep it cheap. And he just continued to hold out because, you know, he wanted to make what he had written, but he was being repeatedly told that Hollywood does not make ghost movies.
Since when?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
that's what they were telling him over and over and over. It's not going to happen. Hollywood doesn't make ghost movies because he's shopping Jacob's Ladder, but he's also shopping Ghost.
If it's one thing that I've learned from T, because he likes, you know, older movies, there's always ghosts or skeletons or ghouls or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way these movies aren't the thing.
Yeah.
Who did he talk to?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But with this newfound attention from being in American Film Magazine, he's given the opportunity to adapt the screenplay for Wes Craven's Deadly Friend. Suddenly, Paramount is very interested in both Jacob's Ladder and Ghost, and Paramount picks them both up.
I have to be honest, I don't know that Ghost and Jacob's Ladder could be more different.
Yeah.
That they came from the same
that they came from the same person, and that Paramount's like, you know, we'll take both of them. That's kind of wild.
It's like, okay.
Well, I mean, Ghost in its own right, too, is a great movie.
Yeah,
but very different.
Yeah.
But now we enter Adrian Lyne, the director, who already has a relationship with Paramount because he had done Fatal Attraction and Flashdance with them.
That's right.
Okay.
So he gets his hands on the screenplay and said that it's one of the best things he's ever read. At this point, he had been attached to direct Bonfire of the Vanities, but he read Jacob's Ladder, called his agent, and was like, get us out of that. We're doing this.
Damn.
So nearly a decade later, Jacob's Ladder was finally getting made, except no, it wasn't. There were changes in Paramount executives, and this new group did not like the ending of Jacob's Ladder at all, and they did not want anything about the Vietnam War in it at all.
It's kind of important.
Yeah.
So when that wasn't going to change, they pulled the plug and canceled the movie. But they did keep Ghost. So finally, Carol Co. Pictures picks up Jacob's Ladder, sets a $25 million budget, and lets Rubin co-produce and gives Lyne complete creative control. So finally, they're able to make the movie that they wanted. And they did make some changes along the way, but they were changes that they wanted to make, specifically Lyne, because he's like, I love this. This is not going to work. But it would go on to inspire the creative minds behind so many things like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, American Horror Story, and that's just naming a few.
You can see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Silent Hill.
Yes.
Knowing
yeah.
it's like, it's right there. But yeah, let's get into it.
All right.
Now, before we crack this film's back, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Podmortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, then let's cool off. The film begins with the title in large and plain font, red against a black background, Jacob's Ladder. So, as a heathen, as a non-religious person, I wasn't aware that this is a Bible story. And I did try to research as best as I could what this story is and kind of what it means. I did have a little bit of trouble. I feel like when it's not laid out in plain language for me, when it's like John Paul 36, 24, 36, I get confused. So the way that I understand it, and again, no disrespect, peace and love, all apologies.
Nirvana quote?
Yeah. I'm getting a little nervous. The way that I understand it is that this Jacob person dreamed about a ladder set on earth that went up to heaven and had angels going up and down on it. So God shows up and tells him that his descendants are going to populate the entire earth, that he doesn't need to worry about it, and that God is always going to be with him. And then he wakes up, and I don't know what happens after that.
I can absolutely see the connection.
Yeah.
Especially as we continue.
Right.
So I do understand why the title has this overlap.
Yeah. And it's recontextualized what it means within this film.
Mm-hmm.
So it is also interesting that they're able to add some duality, especially with a lot of the imagery, and we'll talk about it, but a lot of the imagery that was originally intended, although it did change to what we end up seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting.
And this film is kind of chock full of religious iconography.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Even like hidden in certain aspects of the set design
Mm-hmm.
or things that people are wearing.
Yeah.
And then a lot of discussions.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where that was. I know there was a guy fighting a giant, a flood.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot.
I'm
There was a
vaguely
lot
aware of
going. Yeah.
There's a lot in there.
Like
It's a
some
big.
guy put his head inside the lion's mouth. All right.
Uh-huh.
Were you going to say it's a big
It's a big book.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten around to it. I will.
It's a bush on fire.
Yeah,
think.
one day we will.
Mm-hmm.
But as credits are displayed, we follow two helicopters silhouetted against a muted orange sunset, their carried contents swaying as they hang. Their blades cut loudly through the air, their reflections mirrored in the water below.
I think we should give kudos to the filmmakers for operating the restraint not to use Creedence Clearwater Revival because every single property that features anything with Vietnam and this exact
The
shot,
imagery, yeah.
it's always some folks are born. Like always.
I was going to say, though, they didn't need to use it because it was already playing in my head.
Okay. So they succeeded, you failed.
I failed miserably.
I think that the choice that they made regarding the music in this section to be this pensive piano
Yeah.
is very interesting and very memorable.
Yeah.
As opposed to just using fucking the same thing that everybody uses.
Everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. It does set it apart.
Mhm.
It does. And adds like appropriate and necessary kind of gravity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it sets the tone.
Yeah. But on the ground, an army platoon sits quiet and exhausted. Chickens roam, clucking lightly as we pan over the men, daunted and dirty. We join the choppers again as they leave, unencumbered by the loads they carried in. A beautiful and reflective piano begins to play, the whirring of the blades fading into the background. The somber music continues as we pan over the men once again in varying stages of defeat. One slumped over with a rifle in his lap, his discolored toes peeking out from a torn sock. Another sits asleep, a small and empty can of food still clutched in his hand. The choppers touch down, unload soldiers, and promptly return to the air, leaving the men below to scatter. I did want to mention they credited a Vietnam vet named Dale Dye. He was the military advisor for this film, and he set up a 5-day boot camp for the actors that we're about to meet.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
I swear we've mentioned this name on the show before.
Oh, yeah?
I couldn't find exactly which film we talked about, but if you look at his IMDb and his filmography, he has been prevalent working in this role on like a wide variety of films like Platoon to Tropic Thunder.
Oh,
damn.
wow. Text on screen reads, Mekong Delta, 6 October 1971. We return to the unit as they pass joints around. Jerry, played by Brent Hinckley, remarking to Paul, played by Pruitt Taylor Vince, that it's strong as he passes it to him.
The Seidler from Seinfeld?
Correct.
I was so shocked.
He served his time.
Some more icky sticky.
Yeah.
Brent Hinckley. I remembered him from Falling Down in 93. He was also in Silence of the Lambs in 91.
Yes, he was.
Mom and Dad Save the World in 92. And Ed Wood in 94.
That's right.
And Pruitt Taylor Vince, love that dude.
Yes.
Man.
Yeah.
Like every time we see him, I know it's a joy. I remember him from a lot of stuff, but mainly from Constantine from 05. He was in Identity in 03.
Yes, he was.
He did Trapped in 02. And he was also in Natural Born Killers in 94.
Yes, that's right.
I had forgot he was in that movie.
Me too. He's just one of those character actors.
Yeah.
He's so good. Like, I mean, point to, like you said, Identity, Malcolm Rivers, incredible.
Always memorable.
Yeah. This is, it's the cast on this film. It just kept blowing my mind. Like, even as we go further in, it's like, oh, you're in this too?
Yeah.
But slamming down a phone, Doug, played by Brian Tarantina, angrily and offensively questions where the opposing forces are. But George, played by Ving Rhames, responds calmly as he helps himself to the joint, proposing that he doesn't even think they're out there. But Paul is lost in his own thoughts, musing that the weed really is something else.
It's a bit of a...
Yeah.
Yeah. Ving Rhames needs no...
No, he's
Yeah, we know him. We love him.
Arby's commercials.
Yeah.
Exactly. His most known role, yes.
But Brian Tarantina, I remembered him from Uncle Buck in 89.
Ah.
But he also did Summer of Sam in 99. Then he did The Black Donnellys in 07. And he was in The Black Klansman in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jacob, played by Tim Robbins, squats down in the bushes, his face the only thing visible in the greenery.
We don't really need to... I mean...
We all
mean,
know Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
And he is brilliant in this.
Yes.
Yeah. Young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 years before Shawshank, even.
Oh, shit.
He stands, buttoning his pants, and Rod, played by Anthony Alessandro, shouts over to him, calling him by his nickname Professor, and wondering mockingly how many times he can shit in an hour. I will say, even though nobody asked me, Anthony Alessandro was on one episode of Sex and the City. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, ah! But Jacob laughs good-naturedly at this, and he walks back over. But Frank, played by Eric LaSalle, joins in. He and Rod comment on Jacob's diarrhea and question why he's even taking the time to pull his pants back up.
They have fun here.
His diarrhea is nasty. Eric LaSalle. I seen him a long time ago in Coming to America in 88. Love that movie. I had seen him in a movie. I didn't know what the hell it was, and it took me a while to find it. It's called Crazy as Hell from 02. It was a weird movie. I think it is like a psychological movie. It was weird. But I didn't remember, and I need to watch this again. It says he was in 1 Hour Photo. That's also from 02.
1 Hour
was
Photo
in 1
was
Hour
so
Photo.
good.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I just remember loving that movie.
It's a wild
It's
one.
really
Yeah.
good. But George pipes up, asking if Jacob was over there jerking off again. And when he invites him to come over and do it to him, the entire group, except for Jerry, breaks out in much needed laughter. And when Jacob counters that he doesn't have a tweezer, the men applaud and laugh harder.
When movies do this, you're like, oh, someone's dead soon.
Yeah, no.
It's too fun. It's too jovial.
It's too light.
Yes. And of course, decorum. Calm down. But I did hear on commentary that this entire opening sequence regarding his bathroom habits and their sexual proclivities
Yeah.
Bathroom habits.
were improvised.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Entirely. And you can tell because the way that they're bouncing off each other, the way they're laughing with each other,
Yes.
it feels very organic.
It
It
feels really
does.
natural. But a soldier suddenly reports movement in the tree line. Of course.
You knew it.
The laughter dies and chaos ensues as the men snap into action, getting into their positions. Jerry grips his head and says that something is wrong. And pulling on his boots, Paul asks what it is. Still clutching his head, Jerry collapses to the ground. George begins to sway unsteadily on his feet, his eyes rolling up into his head. He too comes crashing to the ground, his helmet flying off on impact. Jacob rushes over to him and turns him around, but George is seizing, blood oozing from his nose. Paul is trying to pull Jerry to his feet, asking again and again what's wrong with him, but Jerry can only reply in anguish that it's his head. Jacob screams for a medic as George continues to thrash, banging his head against the ground with every tremor. Suddenly, Jerry jumps to his feet and begins to scream as he spins in a violent circle, his arms jutting out to either side. We see from his swirling point of view as he knocks Frank down when Frank tries to calm him. Jacob continues to scream for a medic, but as men start to run over, the ground bursts in an explosion. Men disguised with leaves on their backs move fluidly through the trees. Thus begins the gunfire, the bombing, the screaming. Our point of view is chaotic and hectic, only catching fleeting impressions of this frantic frenzy. Dust curls up toward the sky and bodies are catapulted into the air. Disoriented and disconnected, Paul sinks down and sits motionless and staring. Frank covers his mouth as vomit spills out from between his fingers. A chopper presides in the sky as the chaos continues. A soldier is pulled along the ground in search of escape, his limp, bleeding, and broken arm dragging along. Another falls to the ground, screaming wildly, and once he's able to pull himself back up, we see that one of his legs is ruined, merely hanging on by a tendon.
This frenzy is so difficult to watch. Mm-hmm. It is horrific. It is grotesque.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was very unsettled by it and just kind of feeling as if you are in the center of it.
Yeah.
Lyne had said on commentary that one of his inspirations for the way in which they filmed these scenes was actually a Time Life documentary series on the Vietnam War. And so they were using real footage as their basis for capturing what we see here.
It's horrific.
And so they were really, really wanting to reach that tonal accuracy of actually being in a war.
Yeah.
And another thing that they did, the cinematographer is a guy called Jeffrey L. Kimball. He actually shot Stigmata, True Romance, and Top Gun.
What the hell?
Yeah. Very varied career.
Yeah.
But in these opening scenes where it is so frenzied and frantic, what they did is they gave one of the stuntmen a camera. Mm-hmm. And they had him in the center of it all. And they were like, actually having had gone through all the blocking of it, he knew where the explosions would be. And so they were like, when you know that they're happening, just kind of turn your head as if you're the one there. They even dressed him as a soldier. He's in the center of it. And so you do see it's kind of as if we're reacting to the things that are happening around us.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what the stuntman is doing. And so it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But through all of this, Paul sits traumatized, his eyes scanning back and forth unconsciously as he stares until he dissolves into tears. Jacob stays by George's side as he continues to seize, and finally, everything explodes in a burst of fire. We linger on a sobbing Paul as the dust settles. Explosions ring out in the distance, and gunfire drones a steady beat as Jacob collapses into the covering of trees. Gripping his rifle, his eyes panicked, he starts forward, his head on a constant swivel. But suddenly, he's accosted. A snapping twig alerts the arrival of an assailant, and we are in his point of view, running full speed at Jacob. We don't see this interloper, but we do see the tip of his bayonet puncture Jacob's gut before he can even react. When the blade is pulled out, a thick spray of blood goes with it. Jacob's eyes widen in utter surprise as he clutches himself and loses his footing.
There are such subtle moments in this performance and reaction to him being stabbed that really fit into what we are told later.
Yeah.
And it's very, very smart on behalf of Tim Robbins, the way that he portrays all of this.
Yeah.
I will say that is a lot more guts than you'd like to fall out. Like the amount of gore and violence and just the sight of it, you already know just how tenuous a grasp is on life, we'll say.
Right.
Yeah.
But just as Jacob seems to lose consciousness, he wakes in a subway seat wearing a postal service jacket. Now that we're out of the chaos, I did want to talk a little bit about Tim Robbins' casting.
Okay.
He said that he almost didn't get the part because there was a concern that he had never carried a feature film before and he'd never played a role like this before. But he said that he knew that he could do comedy. He liked doing comedy, but he also knew that he could do something different and he wanted to. And like we said earlier, he does a fucking fantastic job.
Yeah.
People that were considered for this role were Dustin Hoffman, Richard Gere, Al Pacino. Plucking Tim Robbins out and putting any of them in his place, it makes it a completely different movie for me.
I agree 100%. I also think that people need to remember that he wasn't always Dunkachino.
True.
Like, he did a lot of really amazing and incredible performances.
No, he did.
So when people hear Al Pacino and they think a certain thing, you got to remember
It wasn't always
it
like
wasn't.
that.
You got to remember Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon.
Not in 1990.
Yeah, but he's still Pacino.
He's still Pacino.
He's still Pacino.
It would
still
have.
Pacino.
It just would have brought a different energy.
You know what? I think Hoffman could have done it. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think that still kind of would have stayed.
I totally think that any of them could have.
Yeah.
But
And as well, they approached Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke, and they both said no.
No.
I feel Richard Gere could have been great.
Yeah.
But I think that Tim Robbins is just perfect for everything that you need here.
Yeah.
It just adds. It's just a different vibe. Like, I think Richard Gere has this like inherent charisma, but Tim Robbins, it's this lightness. Like, he's adorable. He like, I don't know. It's just completely different to me.
Yeah.
And any of them could have done it and they all would have done a great job, but it just would have been different. Interestingly, though, the first person that Lyne had in mind for Jacob was Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks would go on to do The Bonfire of the Vanities, which Lyne was supposed to do, and he dropped out of to do this.
That's wild.
But can you imagine Tom Hanks? Can you imagine that?
I could easily see Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
That's like wild.
Yeah.
But Jacob has fallen asleep reading. A copy of The Stranger by Albert Camus still gripped open in his hand. Jacob takes a look around the empty and littered train to ground himself before pulling his glasses out of his shirt pocket and sliding them onto his face. He looks up at the ads on the walls, one of them advertising the Big Apple with the tagline, "New York may be a crazy town, but you'll never die of boredom. Enjoy." And right next to it, the bold red word hell presides over a warning for a drug hotline. That's what life can be, doing drugs, but it doesn't have to be that way. Help is available day or night.
This, to me, is the first things that Jacob sees when he wakes up on this subway. I'm already formulating a theory
Okay.
of potentially maybe these two things and maybe in the middle of such places.
See, right here for me, my thinking at this moment, that was either a memory you're having a dream of before, or you're dreaming of yourself in this book.
Oh.
You're dreaming what you just read. So you're alone. It's like, oh, you were asleep. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But listening to him now, I see that.
There's context.
Yeah.
And even the mention of drugs.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. But Jacob exhales a deep sigh. After consulting his watch, he rises to his feet and pulls on his coat as he approaches the window to the next car. Through the window, he sees Woman on Subway, played by Antonia Ray. She sways slightly as the train clatters down the track. Jacob passes through the doors, and after the light cuts off and leaves them in darkness for a moment, he addresses the woman politely, asking if they've passed Bergen Street yet. The woman stares back at him, her eyes intense, but she doesn't answer. Jacob repeats the name of the street and explains that he fell asleep. The woman just stares back, jostling. The lights cut off again before returning, and Jacob gives up. He settles down in a seat and notices someone sleeping in the train, all of their features obscured by the shrouds of their clothing. The train slows to a stop, and Jacob gets ready to get out. But when he passes the sleeping and shrouded person, he sees something. Something fleshy and tail-like moves among the person's clothes amidst their twitching feet. Jacob lingers for a moment, clearly disturbed, before he rushes through the doors just as they close.
It's like, sorry, sir, gotta go.
Yeah. You go back to doing whatever it is that you're doing.
And I think this was when I was like, oh no, this is not.
This is something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was honestly shocked to dip into the surrealism already.
Yeah.
It just happened so fast, and we're not done.
No. Lyne talked about, because I watched a making of on the Blu-ray, and he talked about, well, first of all, it made me laugh because he was like, it's this penis-like thing, and I was like, you couldn't have said phallic. Like,
no.
There were so many other ways you
Yeah.
could have said besides penis-like, and it did make me laugh. I thought it was more of a tail, but once he said it is quite penis-like.
Yeah.
But Ruben in the original screenplay had this very traditional, recognizable, medieval imagery in these moments of surrealism. And Adrian Lyne was like, people are either going to laugh or they're going to be bored because they've already seen this a million times before. He wanted to do something completely different that had not been seen, and he wanted it, as he put it, rooted in flesh. And I think that is accomplished here and throughout.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it does kind of lend to, I don't like to, say it this way, but it's a little Cronenbergian. A little.
I feel like whenever you reference filmmakers in that way, you get like embarrassed.
I do, because whenever you hear that, people are like, "Oh, what?" and they do the little like jerk off hand motion. You're like, I don't know how else to say it.
I don't mean it that way.
I don't mean it like that. I'm not like that. I'm sorry. But I think that it works, and it also it does give it to where it doesn't appear in the ways that are stereotypical
Right.
of what they're trying to evoke in what genre of imagery
Yeah.
that we'll get to a little bit later, of course.
And I will say I really appreciate the change, because I feel like we're on this journey, and it's clear, after a certain point, kind of what is going on here and what forces are at play, so to speak. And I think that it might have been too much to kind of really hammer it with that. I think that, it is so much scarier.
Yes.
The way that Lyne conceived it. And I think it is something different. I've never seen some shit like what is in this movie. I just haven't, even now.
No. And especially if you were to do it this early in a stereotypical way.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, yeah.
Everything's given away.
Exactly.
I did see, which is very interesting to me, they talked about it on commentary, the way that they had accomplished, because it's like a mechanical apparatus, this tail.
Okay.
But whenever they had shot it, they showed it like kind of tumbling out of the jacket and moving, and then Jacob rushes away.
Right.
But they said there was something about it that just didn't seem as menacing
Okay.
or ominous. And so what they decided to do is they took what they shot and reversed it and made it look like this person on the subway was hiding this tail.
Ah, okay.
And it does come off a bit creepier.
Yeah.
That's definitely scary.
Yeah, like you accidentally saw it and they're like, nope.
Yeah, it worked for me the same way the weird shit worked in Possession for me.
Yeah.
That tentacle, whatever was
Yeah.
going on, like that, it is unnerving.
Yeah.
And then to make it seem like that, like it's trying to hide that from you. Oh no.
You bringing up Possession, I think there are some interesting parallels between the two.
Yeah.
That's very true.
In terms of some imagery and things like that. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
And one thing I want to mention as well, in kind of hand in hand with this idea that I had mentioned of Cronenberg and the way that I said it, doesn't matter. Who is also one of Jules' favorite directors. Another inspiration that Lyne had was the artist Francis Bacon, who is another one of Jules' favorite artists. I just want to mention. But this idea of these human forms and these kind of organic looking, I guess, perversions of anatomy
Yeah.
and the certain colors that are used and the way that it's portrayed, it does kind of lend itself to Bacon's frightening and surreal artwork.
Yeah.
And they made mention of intentionally keeping things brief because they say that the longer you see something like this, potentially the less scary it's going to be.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And it might even, after a while, become humorous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have more to say about that later on too. I think that was a big concern of Lyne's is he did not want people to fucking laugh.
I get
He
it.
did not want it to be funny. And I'll speak for myself. This shit is not funny. Like,
No.
it's not funny. But now on the platform, the train speeds away, but that woman maintains her strange eye contact through the window until she's out of sight. The platform is similarly abandoned, with Jacob the only person here. He passes a heavily graffitied wall, but when he comes to his desired gate, he finds it chained and padlocked. Abandoning this route, Jacob returns to the platform and he passes a sign proclaiming that he's on Bergen Street. So again, we see the inspiration of Ruben's nightmare
Yes.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually an abandoned level, a section of the subway
Oh, really?
that they filmed in, in New York
Okay.
City.
I would be so fucking scared.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he actually did get off on his stop.
Yeah.
I thought that he would have slept through it, and then it's just like this nightmarish thing of having to find your way back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is your stop, and this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frightening.
Terrifying. Jacob's shoes clack loudly against the floor, echoing in the otherwise silent space as he mounts the stairs. We peer down at him voyeuristically through a grate that blocks his entry to the street. He mutters the word fuck as he hooks his fingers into the metal opening, wrenching his hand away angrily before he's forced to return to the platform once again. Jacob continues to walk around the deserted area, noting the signs pointing the blocked way to Bergen Street. He looks down the dark tunnel before hopping down onto the tracks, and my anxiety went to fucking 100 the
Oh, yeah.
second he jumped down there.
Am I the only one who didn't know that the third rail is electrified?
Well, that was my concern.
Yeah.
Because when he jumped down there, I was like, well, isn't that electrified?
Yeah.
I was like, he's got to be
I did not
careful.
know.
Yeah. You should not be on the tracks at
No.
all. But
I
if you're
did not
walking
know
on the
that.
tracks, you could just get electrocuted like immediately if you press.
Well, if you press your foot on it.
If you press your foot on it.
AKA walk.
Yeah, I was thinking. Look, I was thinking in terms of like a video game because this is really reminiscent of Silent Hill.
Yeah.
It's so Silent
So
Hill.
it's like if you press forward on your own body, but yeah, it's electrified.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But Jacob makes his way into the darkness, his foot accidentally slipping from the tracks and landing in the standing water. A rat moves restlessly beside his feet before he's able to hop back out of the water. A line of suspended light bulbs rattle, but Jacob continues forward carefully. The rattle grows more intense, shaking the light fixtures above, and as Jacob slowly crosses the tracks, he is illuminated by a bright and foreboding light. He stares, stricken still with fear, as a train travels down the tracks, barreling right toward him.
The imagery of Jacob being caught in a bright light.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. A lot of the clues that you don't even pick up on the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was wild to me was the clues that he didn't pick up on that the train was coming.
Yeah.
Because shit was
Like,
shaking.
that's rattling.
Yeah.
Why is it doing that?
He's like, "What's that rattle?"
Because he does look around and you see shit going on and he's still confused.
He panics, unsteady on his feet, but he manages to throw himself to the side of the tracks just in time to avoid being hit. As the train speeds by, he sees people silhouetted in each of the windows, their hands pressed against the glass as their featureless faces seem to stare down at him. Jacob stares, afraid, but this fear only intensifies when he's able to see the back window. A figure looms ominously, offering a sly wave to Jacob as the train continues to depart out of sight. An eerie chorus harmonizes and fades as Jacob stares after it, panting in an attempt to find his lost breath, but he pulls himself to his feet and continues forward. I'm terrified. I'm already scared.
I think it's frightening enough seeing these figures.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The wave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost as if you were wanting me to see this.
Yeah.
Not just that this is what you have going down on Bergen Street.
Yeah.
You wanted me, Jacob Singer,
Yes.
to see it.
Yeah, that was for me.
Yeah. It is so scary. And it's like, it's not even like that outrageous, but just the way that the silhouette, I don't know, it is extremely unnerving.
I think the thing for me was watching it, the speed of the train as they're passing by in the windows, it's almost like, am I seeing this right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the last one, it's like, no, I did see that exactly right.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
After a sweeping view of the Brooklyn skyline at dawn, we find Jacob again, leaning against the wall of an elevator. He messes with one of the pennies placed in the grid pattern of the window until the door opens and he steps out.
Lyne had said that he had seen something like this at an art installation, I think in San Francisco, and he just put it into this scene as part of it. But it kind of just adds to the strangeness of it.
Yes.
This almost, again, we talk about it a lot, but these weird little teases of like a non-reality,
Yeah.
dreamlike.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
In the hall of his building, we hear the echoing cries of a baby as Jacob steps past abandoned strollers. There is a doll left on the floor, and Jacob takes the time to pick it up and place it in one of the empty strollers. When he finally arrives home to his apartment, he's greeted by his dog Chester as soon as he opens the door. As he locks it back, he tells Chester to go back to bed, but Chester isn't the only one awake. A voice calls from down the hall, asking Jacob if that's him. He starts to walk forward, only to clatter into furniture. As Jezzy, played by Elizabeth Pena, comes down the hall, shrugging into her robe, he asks if she rearranged the apartment. She tells him that she only moved the chair, and when she switches on the light, she asks if that's better. And with a grin, Jacob tells her that it is.
Is it kind of interesting that he doesn't seem to know his way around?
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
I didn't think about it until you just explained it or
Yeah.
described it.
But Elizabeth Pena, I remember her, and I've watched this movie countless amounts of times. She was in La Bamba from 87. Absolutely fucking love that movie.
She was. That movie is so sad.
Yeah,
He
it
made
is.
me watch it and I was like sobbing. I was like, why did you make me watch this?
We got to go through it together. She was also in a movie that I remember watching as a kid, Batteries Not Included. That also came out in 87. She did Blue Still in 90 and Rush Hour in 98. I do remember her being in that movie.
Oh, wow.
I read that she was the first person to audition for Jezzy, but it was kind of the same worry that they had about Tim Robbins about quote unquote never having carried a film or whatever. But they considered so many huge names, just to name a few: Andie MacDowell, Julia Roberts, Demi Moore, and Madonna.
This would be a very different film.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
different
yeah.
with any of them.
Although I love Andie MacDowell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I don't know. She just brings something so different and interesting to this character.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even after going through all those people, they went back to her, the first person to audition, that they were like, nah, maybe not.
And I'm thinking, like, Madonna in 1990, like, can you even get her?
Oh, yeah, at the time.
You know?
Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
I don't know.
And the other thing that I'm thinking, this obsession with, they haven't carried a movie before. I'm realizing you did give this movie a budget of like $25 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising to me. No, like, everything that we see is brilliantly realized and everything is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I was very shocked to hear that this film cost $25 million to make.
I would think for what we get here that it was more than that.
I would think less.
Really?
Yeah.
Everything looks great.
It does, but I feel like this is like, I don't know, when I think of budgets, like this could be a $10 million movie.
Huh.
That's interesting for both of y'all because I'm so bad at any of that. I just know like when something sounds really, really big or really, really small.
Maybe it's more expensive because they filmed in New York. Maybe that's part of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good point.
Maybe I'm thinking more about budgets because we had just covered Beetlejuice, and the budget on that was only $15 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, you're right.
Yeah.
And you think about what we see in this film, and it's not as if there's these big... I mean, I understand the scenes in Vietnam were pretty elaborate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not these big elaborate set pieces or this need for this extreme like artistic production design.
Right.
And the cast isn't even a lot of people that you would say, oh, well, there's $5 million right there.
Right.
You know what? That is true because a lot of these people that we do see, though we know them now,
Yeah.
they were young
Exactly.
at the time.
Yeah. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But after a moment heavy with expectation, Jesse asks him what he thinks. He doesn't know what she's talking about, so she supplies the room. Jacob pulls off his jacket and lets out an exhausted sigh. Walking past her into the bathroom, he tells her to ask him tomorrow, but she points out that it is tomorrow. He turns on the shower, and when asked why he's so late, he tells her that Ned Nash called in sick again. He adds that Ned is always sick, so he worked and got some overtime. He gets undressed, and Jesse wonders what happened to his pants, but he just tells her not to ask. He steps into the shower, and as he pulls the curtain closed, Jesse tells him that he looks terrible, and he thanks her with a playful smile. Jesse leans in the doorway for a moment, taking in Jacob's form through the clear curtain. She disrobes, revealing her naked body underneath, and when she steps into the shower with Jacob, she is met with an embrace.
This warmed my heart so much.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they are with each other is very, very adorable.
Yeah.
Especially in this scene. I really like their dynamic, and I like how they play off of each other as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did want to talk a little bit about this apartment.
Okay.
A big chunk of this film is filmed on location in New York City, but I was very surprised to learn that this apartment is based on an apartment that they found in Williamsburg, but then constructed as a set.
Oh,
This is not a real apartment.
Wow.
that is surprising.
Yeah.
They had said on commentary that the production designer, Brian Morris, who, by the way, worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, The Black Pearl,
Huh.
The Hunger with David Bowie and Susan Sarandon, and Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Holy shit.
But he had this set built, and they widened the measurements by 1 foot in every direction to make room for the camera. But it's basically the exact apartment that they found in Williamsburg, just built on a set.
Oh, wow.
That's really cool. To speak to what you were saying about their dynamic, Tim Robbins had said that he knew he had to bring a lightness and a levity to Jacob, and that the moments of lightness are what a man like Jacob is living for with everything that he's been through. He said that if he did not find those moments for Jacob, then this film would be so dark it would be unwatchable.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Bleak is good, but if it's nothing but that, it can be a little taxing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And it almost gives him more of a relatable quality.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you're just a normal dude.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But suddenly, we're back in Vietnam, the rain falling in the lush jungle as Jacob lies struggling on the ground. He pulls himself along with the little strength he has until he lies on his back. He looks up through his glasses in the rain, and when his vision comes back into focus, he sees an ornate and intricate spider web. Voices carry from further in the trees, and when Jacob looks in the direction of them, he sees red lights scanning the area. His voice strained and quiet, he asks, "Help me."
This entire sequence is shot so beautifully.
Yeah.
Yes.
The way that spider web comes into view. The red lights, I did hear on commentary that those were the color of searchlights that were often used in Vietnam.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know why, but personally, I thought it was a stylistic choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was something that was actually accurate, but according to Lyne, it is.
Okay.
Maybe so that they would know that that's what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I know this sounds dumb, but I always wondered that too, because on Fallout you get the tactical lighting and it's red.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh,
it all makes sense now.
I thought it was that too. I was like, maybe it's just style. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Tactical, whatever. I'm red robot coming to destroy shit or whatever. But I guess it is.
Yeah. But Jacob repeats the sentiment, help me, as he wakes up with a start in his bed, his eyes open and afraid. He raises a hand to block the bright sunlight coming in through the window. His awakening is anything but peaceful, but Jessie seems used to it. She sits at her vanity on the other side of the room fixing her hair, and she looks at him through the glass in her mirror. She just casually comments that he's up. She crosses over to the bed and drops something wrapped in a brown paper bag next to him before giving his arm a loving squeeze. Jacob doesn't know what it is, and as she pours a glass of orange juice, Jessie explains that his kid dropped it off. Jacob asks if it was Jed, but Jessie tells him no, it was the little one. With a smile, Jacob realizes, Eli. He asks with some humor why she can't remember their names. Jessie strides back into the room, lighting a cigarette, and corrects him. They're weird names, but Jacob corrects her. They're biblical names. They were prophets. Sitting back down in front of the mirror, Jessie admits that she never went for church names, but Jacob laughs at this, asking where she thinks Jezebel comes from. Blowing out smoke, Jessie says that no one calls her that, but Jacob continues to laugh, telling her that she is such a heathen. Same girl, same.
We can all relate. I think my issue with the writing here is this is something these dots would have been better connected without you telling us exactly all of this.
Yeah.
Maybe if we hear a lot of biblical names, we're like, hey, that name's also in the Bible.
Right.
Instead of they're biblical names. And your name is.
But
shouldn't she know her own fucking name?
But I think if you are going to spell it out, this is the best way to do it with like kind of this playful banter.
Okay.
Plus, I've never known, are people really named Jezebel? I've heard that like as an insult.
Well, that was my thing. And you saying that, I feel like that does now, thinking about it, makes me feel a little more validated in what I thought, because he says that, where do you think Jezebel comes from? Well, that's not that. I was like, I thought that was an insult. So
Yeah,
I was kind of like, are you saying what's happening here?
Right.
Well, Claude is also an insult, but I've met people named Claude.
You Claude.
So, I mean, there's...
Fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, Jezebel is kind of a fucking cool name, to be honest.
It is. It's got a Z and a J.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've just never heard it before. Like in life.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I still think it's clumsy.
And that's fair. But Jacob asks jokingly how he ever got involved with such a ninny. Jessie goes over to the bed and crawls on top of him, reminding him that he told her it's because he sold his soul. All right, I go.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know much more of this I can put up with.
that might have been a little.
It points you in the direction it wants you to go.
But Jacob asks what he sold it for, and Jessie tells him a good lay. Jacob muses, and look what I got, before they both exclaim, the best.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, you feel the length of their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They share a kiss, and Jessie gets back up. She disrobes again to get dressed, telling Jacob that there are pictures in the bag. His ex was going to throw them away, but what's-his-name dropped them off on his way to school. Jacob tells her again, Eli. Eli. He pours the photos out of the bag into a pile on the bed. Jacob looks over them, laughing and telling her that they're great, and she joins them on the bed, peeking over his shoulder. He hands her a photo of an infant, asking if it's the cutest baby she's ever seen. She looks at the photo, saying he's a fat little thing, but Jacob reveals that it's a picture of him. Jessie giggles, asking to see it again once he takes it away. But she picks up another picture. Jacob and Sarah, played by Patricia Callenber, pose closely in black and white. Jessie asks who it is, and when he tells her that it's Sarah, she gives the picture back and gets up, telling him that she sees what he was talking about, why he left. Jacob asks what she means, and standing in front of the vanity mirror topless as she pulls on her jeans, Jesse tells him that she looks like a real bitch.
From the photo with her baby? That seems a little extreme, Jesse.
It is.
It was the photo of her and Jacob that set her off.
Oh.
But still.
Either way.
Jacob laughs at this, but counters that she looked good. Jesse says that she doesn't look good to her, but Jacob points out that she didn't marry her. A silence falls upon them and only deepens when Jacob finds a picture that makes the smile drop from his face. He looks at it with deep reflection as he sinks back onto his pillows, and we see that it's a picture of Gabe, played by an uncredited Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Uncredited.
Yes.
Yeah.
I read that his dad said that this did not fit in the with the image that he wanted for Macaulay Culkin.
I've heard a lot about that guy.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we can leave it there. No, not at all. But Jacob looks at the photo lovingly and asks how he's doing. He caresses the picture, and we get a glimpse of Jacob and Gabe in black and white, playing and waving at us. Now in his bed, Jacob begins to sob, pulling the blankets over his face. Jesse asks him what's wrong and goes over to comfort him, but when she sees the photo in his hand, she understands. Stroking his hair, she asks if this is the one that died before he went to Vietnam. Maybe I'm sensitive.
No.
I was a little floored at the way that she even asked this question.
The choice of words.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tone.
It is odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a little callous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Jacob tells her that it's Gabe. He sighs deeply, wiping away the last of his tears and apologizing. He explains that he just didn't expect to see him today, and it took him by surprise. Suddenly angry, Jesse begins to snatch up the pictures and crumple them up. Jacob tells her to stop, and Jesse finally goes to leave, telling him that she doesn't like things that make him cry. With her gone, Jacob picks up his wallet from his nightstand, set next to his glasses and in front of a framed photo of him and Jesse. He slips the photo of Gabe inside his wallet and rebuts unconvincingly that he didn't cry. But elsewhere in their building, Jesse dumps the contents of the crumpled paper bag into the incinerator. Once she closes it, we see Jacob's photos flutter down into the flames. They lap hungrily at the one of him and Sarah until Jacob's face is eaten away.
There's a lot here that is very important.
Yeah.
Some that comes up later in dialogue and some that comes up right now just in the imagery of it.
Oh, yeah.
But she burned the photos?
I was fucking floored.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about what's happening here. I mean, we started out with the war movie, then we have aliens or zombies driving a train. She just threw all my
Slender Man in the back waving?
Yeah, he's saying, what's up?
It's a Milan.
Yeah, then she threw all my shit away. What?
I honestly was thrown off at the fact of Jacob's ex wanting to throw these away.
Yeah.
Because I understand, like, oh, they're divorced or whatever, and he doesn't seem bitter, but like maybe she is. But these are still pictures of your kids. I thought that was weird.
If it was all photos of her and Jacob together,
Yeah.
but it's literally a picture of her with her baby on the bed.
Yeah.
And what's the reason?
It's odd.
Yeah, I don't know.
I did want to talk a little bit about the music in this film because there is a really cool moment where the sound of the incinerator closing sparks the musical cue and it blends in really beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Lyne said that was something that he had wanted to accomplish many times in the film. And it does happen in ways that become such a part of the sound design that it's kind of masterful.
Okay.
Even that choir of voices, it echoes through the tracks of the train as the Slender Man is on the back.
Yeah.
Like things like that. But the composer was a guy called Maurice Jarre.
Mm-hmm.
And he has had a prolific career as a composer. He wrote the score for Eyes Without a Face in 1960.
Okay.
Oh.
which is a film I desperately want to cover on the
Yeah.
show. But he won 2 Oscars, once for Lawrence of Arabia in 1962
Oh.
and one for Dr. Zhivago in 1965.
Holy shit.
Damn.
But he composed the scores for Fatal Attraction
Makes sense.
and Ghost.
Makes
Hey,
sense.
there you go.
And so he was a name that,
Yeah.
But there are like a lot of really interesting compositions in this film, from that somber piano and strings
Yeah.
that was kind of the opening of the film, and we revisit a little bit later in like a bit of a reprise. But these weird soundscapes that kind of continue the action of the scene itself, just masterful work.
Oh, yeah.
But we cut to Jacob in his mail truck, driving along, snacking and singing Al Jolson's Sonny Boy to himself.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He continues humming to himself as he makes his way through a bustling post office, carrying a tray of fast food.
I was glad to see him arrive at work and be surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because him being alone ever is just, I know what can happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jessie stands in a cubicle, sorting mail into various slots, and she doesn't notice Jacob when he slides her lunch through one. When she sees him, the two smile at each other, and once he joins her, he asks how her day is going, and as she pulls him into a hug, she shares that it's better now.
Again, there's so much about their relationship that's adorable.
Yeah.
Them working together,
Yeah.
them having all these moments, the moment from the shower, some of the moments in the morning in bed.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so 50-50.
But this here feels completely normal.
Yeah, it does. It does. And even as he's walking through the post office, everybody's like, hey, Jacob.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But he tells her that he's going home. Jessie is confused, and he tells her simply that it's just one of those days. His back is killing him, and he's going to go see Louie. She warns that his boss is going to kill him, but Jacob shrugs this off. Jessie admits that she'll miss riding home with him because she was looking forward to it. She holds him closer, and he asks her to go easy because of his back, but she squeezes him close, and we match cut to Jacob lying shirtless on a table as he's adjusted by a chiropractor.
I got to talk about the editor really quick because some of these transitions are absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And there's a sequence later that is just so expertly cut. But the editor is a guy called Tom Rolfe, and he's actually an Oscar winner for The Right Stuff. But he also edited Taxi Driver for Scorsese.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
But some of his work in this film and that moment in particular is just so well done.
It is.
Yeah.
But Jacob sucks in air sharply and painfully as said chiropractor, Louie, played by Danny Aiello, assures him that it didn't hurt. Jacob asks how he knows that, and Louie just chuckles that he knows him. He asks why he's so tense today, and Jacob has to admit that he doesn't know.
Danny Aiello.
Mm-hmm.
I know this man from watching Harlem Nights over and over. That was in 89. He also did The Godfather 2 in 74, Moonstruck in 87, and Do the Right Thing in 89.
God damn.
Yeah.
He is so good in this.
Yes.
He's so, I don't know, you get such a sense of who he is. And I feel like we don't even spend that much time with him.
Yeah.
I feel like he just feels like a real, like a fleshed out person.
It honestly might be 3 or 4 scenes.
Yeah. But Louis says that he saw Sarah the other day. Jacob takes this casually as Louis continues to knead his back. He asks if Sarah's knee was acting up again, and Louis answers absently, a bit. Jacob asks what she had to say, and Louis has him turn on his right side. When Jacob turns left, Louis corrects him. How about your other right? He ponders that philosophers like Jacob can figure the whole world out, but not know the difference between right and left. Jacob smiles and asks again what Sarah said. Louis says that she's like Jacob. She didn't say much. Considering that they're two clams, he's not surprised that their marriage didn't work out. He has Jacob take a deep breath and let it out slowly as he cracks his back. He commends him and has him roll over to his left. Jacob follows instruction, continuing to pry about Sarah as he rolls over. He asks if she mentioned the boys, but laughing, Louis says that she said Jacob is a son of a bitch and she regrets the day she laid eyes on him. Jacob chuckles that he thought she didn't say much. Louis counters that she didn't say much. That's all she said. He has Jacob take another deep breath, adjusts him again, and has him lay on his back.
I don't think Jesse would like him asking about his ex so much.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't think the board of chiropractors would appreciate this. Breach in confidentiality.
Yeah.
If that's even what the board is called.
It is today. It is right now.
They're pissed.
He tells Jacob that he really thinks that Sarah still loves him, but Jacob doesn't agree. Bending Jacob's legs up and stretching them, Louis explains that Sarah won't stop talking about him. That's love. He thinks that Jacob should go back to her, but Jacob reminds him that she kicked him out. But Louis educates Jacob on his problem, spending 6 years to get a PhD to go to work at the post office. He crosses over to Jacob's head and pulls upward. Jacob explains that after Nam, he just didn't want to think anymore, and Louis allows that any other brain but his, he would agree. He finesses Jacob's neck, feeling and massaging as he tells him to relax. He warns him that this next one is going to be strong. Still reassuring him, he jerks his neck severely to the side, and suddenly, with the crack of Jacob's neck, we are back in Vietnam. The bobbing lights that we saw earlier bathe the jungle in an unnatural red light, technically making Jacob's Ladder 1990
Oh, no.
a giallo film.
Hey.
Eventually, you're going to get tired of it.
I'm really not. I'm really not. The owners of the lights come toward Jacob, who still lies on the wet ground. A field medic, played by Jamie Perry, appears over Jacob, pulling off his bag and announcing to the rest of his group that he found one, and he thinks he's still alive. Back on the table, Jacob jerks away from this memory with a look of confusion, and now, standing over him is just Louis, backlit like an angel. A chorus sings in a low tone before fading away, and curiously, Jacob asks what Louis did. Louis answers, I had to get in there. It's a deep adjustment. He tells Jacob to just rest and let it set for a moment.
You better tell me right now that that's where all our memories are stored or something. Because that shouldn't happen and you did not explain yourself at all.
Yeah.
He's like, I had to.
Yeah, I had to do it, Jacob. It's like, what the fuck did
But
you
why?
do?
Yeah, why?
It's too much, dude. Like, he knows what he did. He did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Jacob admits that he had a weird flash just now, and Louis asks about it with some concern, but Jacob shrugs it away. He says that he's been having them lately. He looks up at his friend and tells him that he looks like an angel, like an overgrown cherub. They share a laugh at this, and when Jacob asks if anyone ever told him that, Louis tells him that he does every time he sees them. Sincerely, Jacob tells him, you're a lifesaver, Louis, and Louis commiserates. I know. I get it.
That's the kind of shit I'm talking about.
He's been about to explode for the last 4 sentences.
Yeah, dude, because you already let the cinematography speak for itself.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
Exactly. The way that he's lit, you're like, oh, this feels angelic. You even wrote it in your script.
I did.
And then he's like, you know what? I've been thinking. You look like an angel, Louis. It's like, yes, we know.
Well, they've got to point you
But
in the right direction.
Back to John Paul's thesis statement.
Yeah.
But it is, and you're absolutely right, T, because that is my no. Okay, now I'm convinced none of this is real. You didn't have to say that. Like you said, the imagery, the way you look, dude, there's a halo around your head.
Yes.
What the fuck more do you need to tell me?
And you can honestly, if you're trying to keep this level of like, well, is it or isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it enough that he literally just kind of awakened a little bit out of this flashback that it could be, oh, maybe it's the haze of him just waking up and it's not, but he's seeing it this way, but it's not really this way. No. You've already ruined it. This really cool moment.
Yeah.
A really cool visual. You could have just let it breathe.
Well, Louis, he did look like an angel.
He looked like an angel.
He did?
He did. But we knew
And
it.
I'm
No,
like,
yeah, we all knew that.
We got it.
I'm supposed to lay here and not tell you look like an angel? I can't do it.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
Back in his postal uniform, Jacob walks across the street, past a group of people hanging out by a stoop. They call out playfully to Jacob, who continues on his path, but two of the women, played by Keisha Skinner and Dion Simmons, lead the group, breaking into their rendition of Please Mr. Postman by the Marvelettes. They perform for him dramatically, earning a laugh from Jacob and a pause in his stride. But when he continues, disappearing down an alley, they beg him to come back, apologizing for not knowing the rest of the words.
I love this.
This is
Yeah.
so cute. But Jacob doesn't come back. He continues to walk until a car comes screeching, Tokyo drifting into the alley behind him. It did.
It
did.
But you gotta understand, I'm starting to see the tricks of this director very clearly. Anytime anything sweet happens,
Yeah. Right after.
immediately
gotta
after.
snatch it.
Yeah, it's like, oh great, now who's gonna die now? Like, it's terrible.
Right. They're too comfortable. Too comfortable.
No.
Yeah.
I remember when we would watch The Walking Dead and one character got, like, any character got a little too much shine. It's like, fuck,
Yeah.
they're next.
Poor T-Dog.
A man, played by Matt Craven, steps into view, screaming at Jacob to look out. The car barrels down on him, continuing to stay on Jacob, crashing into the sides of the alley as he sprints, zigzagging back and forth. Finally, Jacob breaks through wooden slats and falls out of the way of the car. And the car speeds by, a strange misshapen face staring at Jacob through the backseat window with an open mouth, revealing a small row of teeth is just barely visible in the chaos. Jacob quickly gets to his feet and steps back into the alley, but the car continues forward. Another face joins the first and looking at Jacob through the back window as they go, but this one is out of focus. It looks deformed and shakes with an unnatural urgency. Jacob stands in the alley, shaken and confused.
What was that?
Yeah.
Literally.
We were just singing the Marvelettes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 minutes ago. And this is a little too similar to the incident with the train.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of kind of repetition in kind of the method through which we see some of these things.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like maybe one thing is being called upon, one memory.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say, and also if depending on how you interpret certain events, maybe you would cast the person in a certain vehicle as monstrous
Yeah.
Right.
every single time.
Right.
But I think something that's really interesting about this film is the way that they use their chaos to hide these clues.
Mm-hmm.
Because you even introduced a person that you don't even realize was that person
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the beginning of this sequence.
Well, because it's like, we're not paying attention to that anymore.
No,
Like, you know,
dude.
we have moved on.
There's ghouls trying to run me over.
Yeah. So you see that shit?
Yeah. And I do think he zigzagged a little too long.
Yeah. No,
I think we
yeah.
could have trimmed this sequence just a little bit.
What?
It started to get a little humorous that he kept zigzagging.
It was, it did go on a little too long. Just like a couple seconds.
Like he's
Yeah,
still doing
yeah.
it and they're keeping up. Like it
I
just
think that dude was watching him that warned him.
We cut to Jacob sitting in a congested hospital waiting room. The hospital receptionist, played by Suzanne Shepard, calls him over. Jacob asks to see Dr. Carlson, but the receptionist is confused. She asks if he's new here, and Jacob insists that he's been here for years. But consulting her paperwork, she tells him, not according to my charts. She asks if Jacob has an appointment, and while Jacob admits that he doesn't, he repeats that he needs to see him. He says that he knows where Dr. Carlson's office is. If she can just give him a pass, he won't take longer than 10 minutes. Dismissively, the receptionist tells him that their doctors aren't seen without an appointment. With a sigh, Jacob leans in closer and levels with her. He was in the Veterans Outpatient Program. Dr. Carlson knows him. The receptionist asks for his name again, and once he tells her, she gets up and looks through the filing cabinets behind her. She mutters that she has a lot to do. She hasn't even had her lunch yet. She pulls open the creaky drawer and rustles loudly through the files before sitting back down. With an apology, she tells him that they don't have any record of a Jacob Singer in their files. Jacob doesn't understand, and the receptionist snaps at him, asking if she has to spell it out. There's nothing there. Jacob counters that that's ridiculous. He's been coming here for years, but she just looks back down at her work. Indicating his head and struggling to convey his predicament, Jacob repeats again that he needs to see Dr. Carlson. The receptionist offers that in emergency cases, they have a staff of psychiatric social workers. It'll only be an hour's wait. She hands him some forms to fill out, but Jacob loses his composure. He slams his hand down on the counter, rattling objects off onto the floor. He says through clenched teeth that he doesn't want to see a social worker. Regaining his calm, he says again that he wants to talk to Dr. Carlson. He knows Jacob. The receptionist leans down to pick up one of the objects that clattered to the floor during Jacob's tantrum, but in doing so, her nurse's hat falls off. Red and irritated skin peeks through her blonde hair. There are growths, hard and pointy, jutting from her scalp like horns. Jacob jumps back at this, shuddering. He runs away, and holding the hat back onto her head, the receptionist yells at him to come back here.
He saw my horn. He can't just leave. It's like I don't know what her basis for screaming at him is to get back here, other than that he just saw.
And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't fully know that was a horn. I thought she was like that one Pokemon that had like celery growing out of her head or something.
She's like that cradle cat.
Yeah.
But Jacob continues to run. A policeman, played by Raymond Anthony Thomas, jumps to his feet and sprints after him. And we saw Raymond Anthony Thomas. He was one of the orderlies on Shutter Island.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
But he follows Jacob through hallways choked with patients dressed in white and orderlies helping them along. He weaves in and out of them, the policeman close behind and yelling for him to stop. Jacob continues to run, and when two of the patients grab onto the officer and hold him back for a moment, Jacob is able to escape into a room.
I heard on commentary they used a bit of camera trickery because they had like this finite space to use for this chase. And so they have Jacob being chased through one hall, and then you see it again on the monitor. And so it lengthens the chase without having to have another location.
That's
okay,
so smart.
yeah.
But it's so, yeah, I was like, wow.
Because it's like, oh no, he's on his ass.
Yeah, dude.
He bursts inside, interrupting a group meeting. The group leader, played by Doug Barron, turns and gently asks if he can help Jacob. Jacob looks around confused. He tells the man that he's looking for Dr. Carlson. Isn't this his office? The group leader sets his notes down in his chair and tells the rest of the group that he'll only be a moment. He walks over to Jacob as the group eyes him, and he comfortingly invites him to step out into the hall, assuring that it's okay. In the hallway, the group leader offers an apology before telling Jacob that Dr. Carlson died in a car accident. The news takes the air out of Jacob, and he looks around frantically trying to process the information. He asks the group leader, when? He tells Jacob that it was about a month ago, right before Thanksgiving. Jacob asks how it happened, but the group leader tells him that no one really knows. They say that it blew up.
I'm sorry?
That's not a car accident.
No.
I was like, that is so fucking misleading.
You can't put those in the same category.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it like blew up or something. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, he was murdered, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Understandably, Jacob doesn't understand. He asks what he means, but the group leader shrugs, telling him that he really doesn't know. He asks if there's anything that he can do for Jacob. Can he get him someone?
You can talk to the nurse up front who was pretending like Carlson didn't exist.
That's
what you could do.
He steps toward him, but Jacob recoils, stepping back just before walking out of the hallway, the door closing behind him. That night, he lays in bed with Jessie. He's in his boxers and she is nude, her leg draped over him. She wonders if maybe it's the pressure, the money, or his wife. Jacob asks why she would bring Sarah up, and Jessie says that she's on his mind. Jacob counters calmly that he never talks about her, but Jessie asserts that it has nothing to do with talking. She guesses that maybe it's the war. He can't spend 2 years in Vietnam and expect... But at this, Jacob pulls away from her. He sits up, asking how the war can explain barricaded subway stations. How does it explain the creatures? Playing with the hem of his boxers with her feet, Jessie proposes that New York is filled with creatures and lots of stations are closed. New York is filled with creatures is a great line, but you know that that's not what the fuck that's not what I mean.
He's like, I saw horns and shit. And the Slender Man was in the back.
That. Yeah.
But I get what she's saying.
Yeah.
And she's on the line of doing that thing that we hate.
Yes.
But I feel like she is a little bit more receptive than we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. His voice barely above a whisper, Jacob tells her, "They're like demons, Jez." Jessie goes over to him, cradling his head. She tells him that they're not demons. They're winos and bag ladies, and the streets are crawling with them. Kissing his cheek, she implores him not to make it something that it's not. But Jacob brings up the people in the car trying to kill him. They were coming right at him. But Jessie has an explanation for this, too. They were just kids on a joyride. It happens all the time. You're starting to piss me off.
So that happens to you. You have to zigzag for 45 minutes to avoid. And those weren't any kids I've ever seen.
Hell
no.
Jacob sighs and allows himself to be comforted, but he's not swayed. He tells her they were inhuman. Jessie scoffs at this and lays back down on the bed. She asks what they were. When Jacob doesn't answer, she asks him, gently raking her nails down his back, if he still loves her. He doesn't answer this either and asks her, "What?" When she repeats the question, he answers a distracted, "Yeah."
There's a very frightening musical cue.
Mm-hmm.
With her nails?
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of setting up something maybe not entirely realized, but in some ways is.
Yeah.
There are, I think once we get to this, the end of everything, there are kind of two schools of thought that you can have in relation to what is going on in this film. Ruben, and I believe Lyne as well, explicitly state that one thing is happening. And yeah, obviously, once we get there. But this other thing, this concept of maybe vying for something, this scene really lends itself to that.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not what was intended. And even my interpretation of this, that's not what's happening. But there are these moments where it really feels that way. And so when you're saying, oh, you're thinking of your wife, your mind's always on your wife, do you still love me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and he's like, yeah. And we kind of continue forward. It really lends itself to that other theory that a lot of people walked away from this film with.
And what's interesting is, like you, that's not my theory either.
Right.
But I'm also seeing a lot of signs, the ads on the subway.
Yes.
Things like this that you're like, oh, it really does feel like Jacob is caught in the middle of two things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
And when John Paul had finished it, he said that. And I was like, oh, I didn't even really look at it that way. But now, like, going over this again, it's like, oh, absolutely. Like, I totally get where you got that.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of that in here for you to be like, no, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just there, and it did confuse me because I would get this from it, and then also I'm like, oh no, I know I think that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was confusing towards the middle of the movie for me because I'm like, I don't know how to feel.
Yeah.
Because to me, that sets up a really cool concept.
Yes.
But it is not completely fleshed out. And that's why I said the ending of it, where they're so clearly saying, this is what happened.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a little anticlimactic.
It is.
All right. But we immediately cut to a party where people are tearing it up on the dance floor to Patti LaBelle's Lady Marmalade. But Jacob is in the kitchen smiling politely as a drunk woman played by Patty Rosborough hangs from him. Her arms around his neck, she dangles, asking if he has a girlfriend, if he likes her a lot, if he wants a new girlfriend because she lives around here and she's very lonely. She buries her head in his chest laughing, and he's finally able to pull away from her.
On commentary, they said that this actress is a stand-up comedian.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
And I looked it up, and she actually co-hosted Short Attention Span Theater with Jon Stewart.
holy shit. But Jacob opens the fridge to get another beer and looks disturbed by a cow's skull sitting on a plate and wrapped in saran wrap. He quickly closes the fridge door. Jesse continues to dance closely with another man as Jacob finds a covered bird cage in the kitchen. He lifts the cover, and when the bird inside flutters its wings frantically, Jacob is startled and lowers the cover back down.
This is another image that repeats itself
Yeah.
throughout the film.
Yeah.
And the first time you see it, it just seems kind of innocuous. Although you're like, why do they have a crow here
Yeah.
during this party? At least they let him sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, they put the cover over. They're like, go to bed. But still, it's
Well,
kind
the
of...
loud
They'll
ass
think it's
music.
nice.
Yeah. Patti LaBelle's singing her ass off, and you got this crow like... But it's wild.
He heads to the second floor, but is stopped by Elsa, played by S. Apatha Merkerson. I was surprised to see her.
Yeah.
She's a very recognizable face.
I know her because, again, another movie, fantastic movie, too. I remember her from Terminator 2
Oh.
in 91. She also did Loose Cannons in 90, Black Snake Moan in 06, and Lincoln in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think she's on Law and Order too.
Yeah.
She's just one of those actors that it's like, oh, I know I've seen you in like 800 things.
Yeah. She does a great job.
But she sits on the stairs and holds her hands out to Jacob, asking if she can see his. He politely declines, but Della, played by Billy Neal, comments as she walks past them. She tells Jacob to do it. It's fine. He relents and reluctantly places his hand into hers. Lady Marmalade gives way to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, and the mood switches as Elsa lowers her eyes to Jacob's palm.
I always read that song and probably the intention as an anti-war anthem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting
Yeah.
to play it there.
Yeah.
And it's starting right at this moment.
Yes.
Yeah. She comments with joking dismay that he's married, but brightens when she spots the divorce outlined on his palm. She likes that. She points out the split in the line in his hand as proof, but he counters that that's a paper cut. The two share a laugh, Elsa commenting that he's got a sense of humor too. Jesse comes over and calls up to Jacob from the bottom of the stairs. She asks if he'll dance with her, just one, and he nods. Pointing at the two of them, Jesse asks if they're flirting. Elsa wags her fingers in a wave and gives her a flirty hi, and Jesse walks away laughing. I will say, I know obviously there is some like simmering jealousy about Sarah, but I just think that they feel so comfortable with each other. Like she walks by and he, like this woman on the stairs is cradling his hand and they're all like kind of close to each other. She's on the dance floor dancing with other people. Like it just seems like there is like trust and comfort. It's not like jealous. It's not, you know, because I don't know, just their vibes a lot of the time, like we were saying earlier, they feel very nice. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. They seem very comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And then you get moments where it's like, whoa, well, I did not like that, you know, but just them at this party, it feels just nice. I don't know.
Well, there is something comforting in not having to worry, period, about what your partner's doing.
Exactly.
And I think it does help sell this. We're here to have a good time. Nothing could possibly go wrong. You know what I mean? We're just all here. You're over there doing your thing. I'm over here. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
It's cool.
Nothing could possibly go wrong.
That's all I was thinking. I feel like that is exactly what makes the other moments so jarring.
Yeah.
Because even when they're together, and they talked about this on commentary, the comfort and just the choices they've made of her being naked around him like that.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of them being comfortable together.
Exactly.
It isn't leading to this like sex scene. It isn't leading to anything. It's just two people who are very comfortable in their relationship and with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then she'll like say something really out of pocket.
Yeah.
Or what the fuck is about to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Where you're just like, oh shit. I thought we were
It's a false sense of security.
Yeah, exactly.
But Elsa focuses back on Jacob's hand, more specifically his heart line. She traces it with a red painted nail before outlining his headline as well. Giggling at him, she moves on to his lifeline. Turning his palm into the light, she remarks that he has a very strange line. They both laugh, but she asserts that it's not funny. According to his lifeline, he's already dead. The two laugh harder at this, Elsa adding that he's out of here. But Jacob questions what can he do. Elsa asks him to just give her his blue eyes before he goes. But he does go.
I will say the lightness of her performance keeps you from really listening to the very specific words
Yes.
that are being said.
Yes.
Especially one sentence.
Yes. He heads back downstairs where Jesse immediately rushes to him for the dance. My Thing by James Brown blares, and Jacob reluctantly obliges, shyly swaying back and forth, smiling as he looks at Jesse.
I will say when we come to learn what exactly is happening in this film and the way that it ends, I think kind of a missed opportunity is picking music, having a cutoff for it, I will say, year-wise.
Oh, is this...
This is past.
Oh.
Yeah. So and again, it's something that only would become really cool if it's something you looked into and you're like, oh wow, they didn't use anything,
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool. But then to think about it and you're like, hey, I wonder if they did that, and look it up and the first thing you looked up is not right.
Well,
It's like, God damn it. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
just get past it, though.
No, I should. And it doesn't take anything away from anything.
Yeah.
No.
And the song's a fucking banger.
Yes,
Yeah, it
it
is.
is.
So I
Yeah.
don't care what year it came out, just use it. But that would have been pretty neat.
No, yeah.
It did make me laugh laugh out loud. I had to rewind it because as he's dancing, he's just kind of, like shuffling back and forth. Someone yells at him to move his size 13s and they go, those are some big fucking feet. Shit.
God damn.
It was odd.
No, it is a lot.
I couldn't stop laughing 'cause it has nothing to do with it.
No.
Well, they are quite large.
They are big feet. But after just a few moments of this dancing with his big fucking feet, Jacob is ready to go. Jesse waves him off, mostly good-naturedly, and turns around to dance with the guy behind her. Jacob's smile drops as he takes another look at them and starts to head out of the room. A couple that was making out on the couch has escalated. The woman's dress pulled up to expose her lingerie as she writhes on top of her partner, kissing him.
Time and a place.
No, they were getting after it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a little uncouth, I would say.
Well, that's a time and a place.
Yeah.
Right
Is
now,
it the right?
Yeah, well,
is it the
yeah,
right
is it
time
the
and
right
place?
one?
That's debatable.
that's the question here.
Jacob continues through the crowd. He is disturbed when a woman turns and laughs loudly and obnoxiously in his face. He sees a man standing suspiciously in the doorway to the house, eyeing him, and he cringes when a bat soars overhead, its wings flapping impossibly loud over the music.
So they got crows and bats. Just,
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we both love these animals, of course. Or we love both these animals, of course. There are three of us here. But
And two animals.
yes, and 2 animals.
Or maybe it was a bird. I don't know, but
I don't know.
it was fluttering bat. It made me think of a bat.
Yeah.
All I know is things are going wrong.
Yeah.
Jacob spins as disembodied bloody teeth snap at him. In the doorway now, there is another man, shirtless and muscled. His face is featureless, and it jerks back and forth on his neck impossibly fast. As the partygoers dance by obliviously, a black cloth appears over his shaking face, and when Jacob stares at him, he is that first man again, his head still shaking frantically.
So I want to talk about that in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
But was the snapping teeth, is that the goat's head he found in the fridge?
Oh, maybe, because that looked fucking terrifying.
Because it's just a quick flash of
Yes.
it.
He's snapping at him.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, he was snapping at it. He got away just in time. But this head shake.
Yes.
So this is something that we talked about a lot on House on Haunted Hill 1999.
Yes.
Because the director definitely watched Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
And really loved what they did here. But it's one of the most frightening visuals that I can think of. There's something just so incredibly unsettling about it. And the way that they did it is so simple.
Okay.
They talked about it on commentary. They said what they did is they shot the actor at 4 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they projected it at 24 frames per second.
Okay.
And so what you see is just this projection of what they shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so unbelievably unsettling.
I will say that I know we love it, House on Haunted Hill, but here when they do it, it is very like, what the fuck? If I seen that in the doorway or in the back of the bus or Slender Man twerking or whatever the fuck, I'm gonna be scared.
Yeah. Even if he's having fun.
Yeah, no.
I'm not.
I'm not.
No, it's terrifying. And like you were saying earlier, T, Lyne had said that he wanted to take that Francis Bacon imagery and blur it with motion. He said that he never wanted, again, to show us too much or anything for too long, and that what you see is bad enough, but he wants you to feel like what you can't see is awful. It's even worse than what you are seeing.
He said as well the use of the strobe light in this scene helps with that. And it's almost a little bit of the theater of the mind with Hitchcock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where it's exactly like you're saying, what you don't see, you fill in the blanks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But Jacob's glasses fall from his face and he drops to the floor to pick them up. He stands, sliding them back on, but the lights are strobing wildly now. In them, in quick shots, he sees Jessie still dancing, but she is sweaty, bent over with the man still behind her, thrusting his hips. She whips her hair around, her dress hiked up, panties exposed, as the man behind her seems to transform in quick flashes. As he balances on fleshy, grotesque hooves, a huge and hideous tail traces between Jessie's legs, and a deformed hand leaves a trail of blood when it touches her ass. But Jessie relishes all of this, the flapping thing behind her, the tail she caresses gently as she continues to gyrate and bounce to the loud music. Finally, the tip of a sharp white horn juts from Jessie's mouth as she is impaled. Jacob screams and tries to run, but he quickly falls to the ground. He lays on his back, looking up as the partygoers surround him, staring down. The lights continue to strobe, and Jacob screams until everything goes quiet. The music and his own cries are muted to nothingness, but the strobing continues, illuminating Jacob's panicked face once more.
I've done a quick inventory, and there was not one part of that sequence that wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Literally.
He shouldn't have came here.
No.
I know we want to relax and or whatever, but you're having a hard time. Shit's going on.
You're going through it.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on in this scene. First of all, I thought this was really cool that Elizabeth Pena asked for the guy that she is dancing with to be a friend of hers so that she would be more comfortable doing it with somebody that she knows, and they let her. So that's just her friend that she's dancing on. Yeah,
good.
I thought that was cool. But I saw in that making of, the hooved legs are on somebody's arms, and they're bent over with their arms on the ground, making the legs kind of go back and forth as it's dancing or thrusting or whatever the hell is happening here. But they had one person doing that. They had another person fluttering the giant wings that's on this creature that is, becoming or whatever. And they had built a twisted and distorted set of shoulder blades that were on this disembodied kind of grotesque torso that somebody is holding, somebody else is doing the legs, somebody else is flapping the wings. They said that they even had the camera strapped to Tim Robbins like MTV Sphere for part of it. And they had a tiny horn poking out of her mouth kind of in quick flashes, and then when they have it jutting out of her like she's being impaled, they used a model of her head for the close-up because it happened so fast. And again, Lyne said that strobe light made everything easier to convey because you're seeing it in these quick flashes. And he said it was really important to him that the effects were done in camera. And so the practical, all of this is happening as they're shooting it. And it is just...
There's not one moment you're taken out of it.
No.
And you feel almost like Jacob.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's very, especially when they close in, how claustrophobic that feels.
Yes. And the stylistic choices that they made, because I feel like if this were just a pair of hooves with some hairy legs, it would still be scary, but they're so fleshy and I don't know, they're horrifying and we barely see them, but they're scary as hell. But the strobing blue light is replaced by a static red as we join Jacob again in his view on the ground in the Vietnam jungle. The first medic is still there, but he's joined by another, played by Christopher John Fields. He alerts that Jacob's guts are hanging out. The first medic reasons that they'll have to push them back in. Now, Jacob shivers under the blankets in his bed, a thermometer sticking out from between his lips. Jessie paces, asserting that she's never been so mortified in her whole life. She admonishes him for screaming. She doesn't know what's gotten into him, but he is not acting normal. She says that she's had too many crazies in her life and she doesn't want another one. Stomping from the room, she mutters that she's tired of men flipping out on her.
I just want to say that I know and I've seen that she loves him very much.
Yeah.
And so moments like this, it's just what the fuck? Because the horrors that that he has experienced.
Yes.
Yeah.
No sympathy,
None.
Just I'm so embarrassed. Who was making it sweet with the demon on the dance floor?
That was
Yeah.
you, Jessie.
That was you. I just fainted.
No, I truly couldn't believe it. And like you said, the trauma that he experienced both in the war and in his personal life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is the...
Literally, my jaw dropped.
Yeah, that was I was I embarrassed you?
Yeah.
It's dude, I had an episode, anything.
Yes.
You don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened to me.
No. Where'd you even meet that demon?
Yeah.
But she hurries back in and snatches the thermometer from his mouth, warning that if he's going crazy by himself. She stares at the thermometer, and when Jacob asks weakly what it says, we see what she's looking at. Jacob's temperature has maxed out the thermometer, which stops at 106.
And I bet you feel real...
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Now who's embarrassed?
Yeah,
Literally.
seriously. You should have probably waited until you got the results.
Yeah.
To be an asshole. Horrified, Jessie runs from the room to call the doctor. She flips through the pages of the phone book, answering Jacob that it's gone to the top. He just comments, "Great." Jessie places her call to doctor first and explains the situation, asking if 106 could be right. Once she gets an answer, she slams the phone down and runs to the bathroom. She yells at Jacob to get out of bed as she frantically plugs the tub and starts the cold water. She rushes to the freezer, taking out the ice trays and emptying them into the bath. Jacob sobs that he can't get out of bed. He's freezing, but Jesse tells him again to do it. She runs back into the room and Jacob asks what the doctor said. Jesse tells him that the doctor told her that Jacob would die on the way to the hospital.
And in this frenzy, you feel her urgency.
Yes.
And how much she loves him.
Yeah.
So it's just very odd to me.
It is. She pulls him from the bed and leads him to the bathroom. He's wearing only his boxers, and she yanks them down, telling him to get in before rushing off to get more ice. Jacob repeats again that he's freezing, but Jesse is already next door, ringing the doorbell and banging on the door. A neighbor, Mrs. Carmichael, played by Gloria Irisari, steps out into the hall, pulling on her robe. Jesse tells her that she needs ice. Jacob is running 106 fever. It's an emergency. More neighbors go into the hallway, and Jesse is able to return to their apartment with a pot full of ice. When she gets there, though, she sees that Jacob has collapsed onto the bathroom floor. She tries to pull him up, begging him not to die on her. He is slick with sweat and too weak to hold himself up. Two neighbors rush in. Sam, played by Evan O'Meara, and Tony, played by Kyle Gass.
What the hell?
Yes, that Kyle Gass.
How did I not even notice?
You see him for 2 fucking seconds.
KG?
Literally. KG. Yes.
I seen it, and then your sister was like, I told you, dude.
That's wild.
I was like, there's somebody that's in this for 2 seconds that you're not going to fucking believe.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
They lift Jacob and set him into the tub. We watch from overhead as Jacob sinks into the water, screaming. His body twists and contorts, rejecting the freezing water, but the men hold him down as Jesse pours more ice. Jacob writhes, screaming in agony and crying. Mrs. Carmichael comes in with another bag of ice, asking if Jacob is all right. She dumps her ice in and begins to cry and pray when Jacob screams for help. Everyone's voices meld into a chaotic cacophony, but Jesse looks down on him, Jacob's view of her interrupted again and again by the water. He screams at them to stop it. They're killing him.
So I just want to say, just on a technical standpoint, I did hear that the ice is a combination of rubber ice cubes and real ice.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
So it's a mix that they're dumping in on here.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But this is when I realized just like every scene is going to be very uncomfortable.
Very.
There is nothing like there. You get these small moments of a reprieve.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's one of the most uncomfortable sequences you've ever seen in your life.
Yep.
The shots from within the bathwater
Yeah.
and his face and their frenzy above him. It is just so difficult.
Yeah.
It is. For me though, I thought it was just funny the shot, the look of it, that last shot, because he's like no, and they're
then it
around,
cuts.
yeah, and it just cuts.
It's abrupt.
It is.
I was like, what the fuck was that?
Like he died.
Yeah, I thought.
But we cut to another bedroom, a nicer one. Jacob lies under the blankets, shivering, but when he wakes up, he realizes that the window is open. He reaches over and shuts it, but this wakes Sarah, who is asleep next to him. He explains that he's freezing, but she rolls over, countering that she's not cold. This tracks for Jacob because she's got all the covers. He pulls some over to himself, muttering that it must be 10 degrees in here. He tells her, seemingly not for the first time, that if she wants fresh air, she can sleep on the fire escape. The window is staying closed from now on, but Sarah objects sleepily that it's not healthy when it's closed. Jacob, though, doesn't think that it's healthy to die of pneumonia. He says that he was having a crazy dream that he was living with another woman. This finally gets Sarah to open her eyes, but she closes them quickly again, nuzzling her pillow. He tells her that of all people, it was Jezebel from the post office. Sarah opens her eyes again, and Jacob reminds her that Sarah met her at that Christmas party, but in his dream, he was living with her, and it was a nightmare. He says that there were all these demons, and he was on fire, burning from ice. Sarah rolls over toward him and remarks that it's just guilty thoughts. See what happens when you cheat on me, even in your mind? With a smirk, Jacob admits that she was really good in bed. Sarah tells her husband to go to sleep, but Jacob isn't finished teasing. He continues that Jezebel had really great thighs. Sarah nudges his head, questioning if it was actually a nightmare, and rolling over to face her, Jacob says that it was. It was a terrible, terrible nightmare. Just as the two start to kiss under their blankets, someone walks in, flipping on the light. Which did make me think of John Paul's beef from the Babadook.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm also a little offended if I'm Sarah because he's all horned up from Jezebel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This isn't even about me. But it's Gabe rubbing the sleep from his eyes and asking his father what that noise was. Sarah and Jacob can't help but laugh, and Jacob questions what Gabe is doing in here. Gabe just comments that it's cold, and when Jacob blames it on Sarah, Sarah tells Gabe to go back to bed. He asks if they can tuck him in, and when Jacob looks up, it's clear that he's the one that's been delegated to do so. He jokes, asking if Gabe meant for his mom to do it, but Gabe asserts, no, Daddy. Still laughing, Sarah tells her son goodnight, and Jacob crawls out of bed, leading his son down the hall and into his room.
So just the roller coaster of confusion that began with him closing the window.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rolling over to see Sarah
Yeah.
in his bed. But then you start to think about the timeline that he established in the dream, potentially the dream,
Right.
Yeah.
which doesn't fit with what we're seeing right now.
With Gabe, you mean?
With Gabe, with the post office, with Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, so are we in the dream now?
It is very confusing.
Until we learn.
Right.
Yeah.
But as you're watching, you're just like, what the hell? So,
Yeah, what is happening?
yeah.
Yeah. Gabe jumps into his bed and Jacob tucks him in, smoothing his hair and planting a kiss on his forehead. He hums Sunny Boy, the song that he sings to himself when he's alone in his mail truck, and Gabe looks up at him lovingly. When he pauses, Gabe finishes the lyric for him. But this wakes up Jed, played by Brian Larkin, who is in the top bunk of bunk beds across the room. He pipes up, informing his dad that he forgot his allowance. Jacob points out that it's 5 o'clock in the morning and they can talk about that over breakfast. This placates Jed, but he tells his father not to forget as he lays his head back down. That is so fucking hilarious to me because kids really do that shit, man. And it's like, what? Why are we talking about this?
He's sweating. He's like, I owe Jed
Yeah.
$100. Well, I'll talk about it tomorrow.
It's going to break my leg.
Again.
We pan to the bottom bunk where Eli, played by BJ Donaldson, is also awake. He tells Jacob that he loves him, and Jacob laughs, asking if this is a convention before telling his son that he loves him too. Jacob starts out of the room, but Gabe stops him, asking him not to go. Jacob assures his son that he's not going anywhere. He's right here. He tells him to close his eyes and that he'll see him in the morning. He starts to leave, closing the door behind him, but Gabe stops him again, asking him to open it just a little bit more. Jacob obliges and even pushes it further when Gabe insists, just a little bit more. Jacob turns off the light and takes one more look at his sons before returning to bed with Sarah. He sits for a moment, and when she rubs his back lovingly, he lays down with her, but his face is etched in worry. She rests her head on his shoulder, and he tells her sincerely that he loves her. A haunting score begins, and suddenly we're back in Vietnam, looking up at the sky through the twisted branches of trees. Helicopter blades whir, and a voice on the radio instructs them to declare an emergency. They don't have a fucking chance down here. The sounds of the helicopter fade away, and we are looking down at Jacob as he opens his wet, red eyes. We pan out slowly as tears roll down his face, and we see that he is back in the bathtub in the apartment he shares with Jezzy, lying in cold, cold water. Ruben said that when Jacob wakes up back in this tub, that he feels like this is the moment where either you are willing to go with this movie and just see where it's going to take you, or it's the moment where you decide that you hate whoever wrote this.
Wow.
Because we give him this reprieve and just snatch it right back away from him.
I feel like me personally, I am intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested.
You know?
We fall into that first group.
Yeah. We're not like, I hate this guy.
I wouldn't say here that I hate it. I'll say here this was very fucking sad.
Yeah.
Incredibly sad.
Like you said, snatching that away from him, I was like, why? Just leave us there, dude. Leave him there, and then let's build another movie from there. Something. It's like, don't do that.
No, it's very sad.
And again, the second you saw Gabe, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Something's off.
Mm-hmm.
But Jacob's doctor, played by Lewis Black.
I swear to God.
I did not even recognize him at first.
Really?
I've never seen him this young ever.
I didn't recognize him at all.
I saw him and I'm like, there's no way that's Lewis Black. But yeah.
Totally is. But he looks down at Jacob as he pulls the stethoscope out of his ears. He tells Jacob that he's a lucky guy. He must have friends in high places. But Jacob continues to stare, wide-eyed and traumatized. Jesse places a hand on his forehead and offers him a smile, but Jacob just stares, eyeing Chester as he sits next to the doctor. His eyes return to the ceiling and the tears don't stop. As we close back in on his face, he closes his eyes and the slowed down throbbing of helicopter blades return. In Vietnam, a chopper hovers over a platoon as a man is airlifted up. Jacob wakes up and opens his eyes to Orson Bean, played by himself, on a small flickering black and white TV. His eyes glide over the room to find Jessie, smoking and worried, but her face brightens when she sees that he's awake. She sets her ashtray on the windowsill and joins him in the bed, stroking his forehead gently. She promises him that it will be all right. He's gonna be fine. Jacob asks quietly if he's home, and Jessie tells him that he is. He's right here. He's home. The doctor said that he's lucky his brains didn't boil. She muses. What a night. She tells Jacob that he was screaming and kicking, and he said over and over, "Sarah, close the window." She tells him that he was talking to his kids too, even the dead one. Jacob winces at this, but Jessie just says that it's weird, huh?
Again.
I cringed too.
Where is the tact? Where is
Empathy.
the empathy,
Yeah.
understanding, sensitivity? It's just unbelievable.
Not here.
Yeah.
Not around here, partner.
No, dude. And it's just so out of character because there are these times that she is so sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
That she really clearly cares about him. And then she just says something like that. And you're like, geez, man.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
A soft piano plays as Jessie fights back her emotions, telling Jacob that he melted 50 pounds of ice in 8 hours. Jacob takes this all in and asks plainly, "Am I dead?" Jessie finally breaks, beginning to cry, as she assures him that he's not. He's right here. The doctor says that he just has a virus and he needs to rest. But she laughs that that's what they always say when they don't know what's wrong. She kisses him on the forehead and leaves him to rest. But Jacob just rolls over on his side, tears spilling from his eyes again as he begins to cry.
Him asking if he is dead is so tragic.
Yeah.
Yes. But goddamn.
Yeah.
Am I?
Yeah.
But later, in what I am counting as a research scene, we glide over copies of various books, including The Witch's Bible, The Roots of Evil, and a book on demonology, to find Jacob in his robe, looking through the pages of one in his living room. From the kitchen, as she makes a sandwich, Jessie tells him that he really needs to get out today. Staying in here all the time isn't healthy for his mind. Jacob continues to flip through the books, lingering on a depiction of a man holding his own head as winged demons swoop down. She tells him to go take a walk or go to a movie. She invites him to enjoy himself because at least one of them should be having a good time. Jacob still doesn't answer. Annoyed, Jesse walks over to him, leaning into his face and demanding, "Anybody in there? Anybody home?" But her face is contorted, her eyes completely black, and her teeth small and sharp. Panicked, Jacob jumps to his feet and pushes Jesse, and she collapses on the other side of the room.
So my blood ran cold.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a number of things wrong here.
Yeah.
This genuinely scared the shit out of me.
It happened because the shot of her is already tight enough.
Yeah.
And then it just shifts.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a music cue. I don't know if maybe I was just too scared to hear it.
If you were, then so was I. I don't remember one either.
But you could tell the way that they started this scene that things were just a little off to begin with.
Yeah.
They had talked about that shot of her in the mirror where she's kind of split.
Yes.
It's supposed to be like this little tease of something unsettling.
Yeah.
And that more might be on its way.
Okay.
And it clearly was.
Yeah.
But that's one of the probably most shocking moments in the film. And it's something, again, that happened so quick.
Yeah.
Jacob demands to know who she is, but pulling herself to her feet, Jesse fires back, "Fuck you." Grabbing her lunch from the kitchen and taking her coat off the rack by the front door, she tells him that 2 weeks of this shit is enough. She invites him to stay here and rot if he wants to. Ripping the door open, she bids him, "Have a good fucking day," before slamming it behind her. Jacob sits back down with his books, confused. The ringing phone breaks the silence, and when Jacob answers it, someone on the other end identifies themselves as Paul Gruniger. Paul, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Yes.
Jacob tries to place the name, but it hits him. He asks how Paul is, guessing that it has to have been 5 or 6 years. He sits back down, flipping through the books, and Paul agrees that it has been a long time. Jacob lingers on the photo of a man in water, and when Paul says that he would love to see him, Jacob agrees, but shares that he's been laid up and sick. Paul asserts, "I need to see you," and that's enough for Jacob.
I did want to point out I had read that an alternative title for Jacob's Ladder was Dante's Inferno.
Yes.
Huh.
Which does make a decent amount of sense, especially if we're leaning towards a certain direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is one of the books that he's reading during this research scene is Dante's Inferno.
Okay.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But they meet at a bar, and as pool balls clatter on the tables behind them, Paul admits that something is wrong. He doesn't know what it is, but he can't talk to anybody else about it. He thought that maybe he could talk to Jacob because he always used to listen. His chin trembling, Paul tells Jacob that he's going to hell, and that's as straight as he can put it. Before Jacob can say anything, Paul warns him not to tell him that he's crazy because he knows that he's not. They're coming after him. Jacob asks who is coming after him. Smoking his cigarette nervously, Paul says that they've been following him. They're coming out of the walls and he can't trust anybody. He says that he has to talk to somebody. If he doesn't talk to somebody, he's going to fly out of his fucking mind. He jumps up to his feet, peeling back the shade on the window by their table and raising his voice to a panicked volume. The other bar patrons glance over at them, but Jacob tells them flatly to mind their business. Paul lowers himself back into his seat and the games of pool commence. Paul allows that he doesn't know who or what they are, but they're going to get him, and he's scared. He's so scared, and he can't do anything. He can't go to his sister's house. He can't even go home. He chokes up, crying as he admits that he doesn't know what to do. Jacob places a reassuring hand on Paul's shoulder and confesses that he knows what he's talking about. Paul doesn't understand, but Jacob tells him, "I've seen them too." He says that it's everywhere like a plague. Relief showering over Paul. He says that he thought he was the only one. Jacob agrees that he felt the same, like he was going out of his fucking mind. Jacob's expression is of disbelief as he tries to understand what's going on, but Paul reaches into his pocket and pulls out a Bible, a cross, and a medallion. He says that he carries these around with him everywhere, but they don't do anything. Nothing helps. He dissolves into tears as he asks, "What happened? What happened that night?
There's a lot to take from this.
Yeah.
Firstly, was this feeling of relief that at least Paul has seen them too?
Yeah.
That there's somebody that we can talk to about this that won't just negate or try to console by dismissing what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And then you also see Paul feel the relief that Jacob is seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also this idea of that night.
It's that because there is comfort in somebody else experiencing this, but it's not somebody that I know in the city. It's not the person that I work with or I'm sharing my life with.
Yeah.
It's the person that I shared this horrific experience with in another fucking country.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is. What happened over there? What happened that night? And it opens a whole new can of worms, honestly.
Yeah. Listening to this, I felt the same way that like you were saying, T. It's like, okay, there is somebody there, you know what's going on. You understand, hey, I'm seeing that shit too. I think for me though, it was a little more of like, I'm like, oh, demons, are we dead?
Oh,
Right.
well,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I was like, you didn't, maybe somebody's after me. Something's weird. Confused me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You said it right out, and yeah, we're calling him that too, but I don't need you to confirm that.
He's like, dude, I was reading Dante's Inferno this morning.
Yeah. Dude, so was I. Didn't they look just like that?
You know
Like
what
the
I mean?
illustrations
No.
inside the book?
We don't need to do that too.
No.
But we see Paul as he was that horrible night in the jungle, traumatized and broken, his eyes scanning back and forth as he sits, chaos and misery unfolding around him. He asks Jacob now, why won't they tell us? As they've been talking, the man from the alley that warned Jacob to look out when the car was barreling down on him has entered, and he looks over at the table where Paul and Jacob sit.
Again, something you might not even notice, but it is this odd familiarity that you're like, where have I seen you before?
Yeah.
Jacob and Paul pass through a gym where two boxers train in the ring. I will say this confused me because we just joined them out on the street. I don't know if this is like showing that they went some like really elaborate way thinking that somebody was following them.
It seemed, because you were in a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was kind of,
it threw me off too.
yeah.
But Jacob follows a very nervous looking Paul out onto the street. As Paul gets into his car, Jacob notices a coin shining on the wet asphalt. Paul settles in behind the wheel of his car, and Jacob smiles, indicating the coin and telling Paul that it's his lucky day. Paul smiles back as he sticks the key into the ignition and turns. Jacob stoops to pick up the coin, but it suddenly jerks away from him. Confused, Jacob looks up, and he and Paul lock eyes for an agonizing moment. Paul's lips twitch up into a small smile before his car explodes, bursting into flames. Jacob is thrown back onto the street, and Paul's medallion and cross chime loudly as they clatter onto the street.
Paul's look was as if he knew it was going to happen.
Almost.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, that's just like, what the hell?
But in my mind, immediately goes back to that doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Same-
like, oh, you guys are being fucking targeted.
Yeah.
That would worry me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you heard that and then you witnessed this.
This is two.
Yeah.
Two? But this explosion takes Jacob right back to Vietnam in his mind, the whirring blades of the helicopter permeating everything as Jacob lies on his back, wounded and staring. Out of nowhere, blood explodes from the pilot, splattering against the windshield of the chopper. The co-pilot screams "Mayday," and a man fires his rifle out of the door. One of the medics yells over all of this, assuring Jacob that they'll be there in 5 minutes. Lying on a cluster of other wounded soldiers, Jacob stares, clutching his wounded middle.
The shot of the blood spattering against the windshield
Uh-huh.
was something that was taken from that documentary, he said.
Jesus
Oh, wow.
Christ.
Yeah.
Now on the street, as Paul's car continues to burn and burst, that man from the alley and now from the bar rushes to Jacob's aid, pulling him away from the destruction. Once he's gotten Jacob to a safe distance, he runs away. Jacob looks back at him before returning his gaze to the wreckage that Paul just so recently was.
Now, we are obviously supposed to be preoccupied by this explosion that just happened.
Yeah.
This dude running away.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because that's suspicious as fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah.
Extremely.
And now I'm starting to be like, what's that?
I don't know if you're here to help me
Yeah.
or to
Literally.
Did you put the bomb in there? Like, I don't know what's going on here.
Right, that's not for you yet. Hold on.
We'll come back for you later. But Paul's funeral is well attended. The guests, gathered under their black umbrellas to shield them from the rain, include Jacob and Jesse, Frank, George, and Doug. At the wake, we gather in Paul's home. Jesse comforts Paul's sobbing widow, played by Arlie Richards, encouraging her to be strong for her children. In the kitchen, the old unit sits together drinking. Frank asks if anyone saw the police reports because it sounded like a bomb to him. Jerry counters that they said it was an electrical accident, but Rod asserts that this is bullshit. Someone is covering something up. It was no accident. But Doug can't believe this. Paul wasn't hated by anyone. I do want to say, even very quickly, just seeing a few of them at the funeral, especially George.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys survived?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that even a couple of them had lived through what we saw.
Mhm.
And then now in the kitchen, they're all here.
Yeah.
I was like, just very surprised.
All of it is really starting to feel, even in calm moments like this, out of time, out of place.
Yeah.
Surreal.
Yeah.
Because honestly, even Paul's death, it feels so big and wild. And then I don't even really believe that it happened until we're at his funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. This also feels a little out of place for me too. It feels almost because this is played very straight, and I know I know that sounds weird in this crazy ass movie, but this feels like this is normal.
Yeah.
And it's like, this shouldn't feel that way.
It's weird because we have stepped out of this world of surrealism and like demons fucking getting it in on the dance floor. And,
All right.
but I mean, right? We've seen all this crazy shit. Then he's back home.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not. He's back here.
Yeah.
He had a fever that should have killed him. We're looking at demons. Paul saw demons, and then now we've slipped into this. No, this is a conspiracy, and we're being targeted, and it's military shit now.
And is it weird as hell that the demons are choosing to bomb you?
Yeah,
The two things don't go together.
No, the methodology of these demons is like kind of wild.
It's appalling,
Yeah.
honestly. But I think that's what makes it so like. Am I in a different movie now? Like, is this a political thriller or are we doing demons? Like this moment here and kind of going forward, I'll speak for me. I was so off kilter because I'm like, what fucking story is being told here?
It almost feels like your mind's not completely there.
Yes, it does. It does. But Frank turns to Jacob and asks what Paul said when they went out. Jacob shares with the men that Paul was upset. He thought people were following him. When asked who, Jacob is honest. Demons. George bristles at this, and Rod wonders what the fuck he's talking about. Jacob elaborates that Paul thought he was going to hell. Doug pauses in the middle of lighting a cigarette, but Rod still has questions. What would make Paul say that? That's strange. George just asks what else Paul had to say.
He said he saw a man on the stairs that wasn't there. He wasn't there again today.
I wish.
But Jacob says that Paul was scared, that he kept seeing things coming out of the woodwork. He said they were trying to get him. George gulps, and the bottle of beer in his hand trembles in his grip. Trying to keep his voice even, he asks Jacob if Paul said what they looked like. Jacob doesn't answer, but he eyes the bottle in George's hand. George loses his hold on it and it clunks to the floor, spilling the rest of its contents. George simply stands up and excuses himself and leaves. Rod tries to make a joke, calling after George that it's in one end and out the other. He picks up the fallen bottle, quipping that he hopes George can hold his dick better than he can hold the bottle.
All right, look, this dude's way too obsessed with everyone else's bathroom habits.
Yeah.
He's like, you're shitting too much. You're peeing too quickly. It's like, dude,
Quickly.
He was.
we're at a funeral. Can we focus?
Literally. But a quick look around the room informs Rod that he's the only one laughing. Haunted faces look back at him, and when Frank lifts his gaze, tears roll down his cheeks. We meet the men again on a rooftop. Jacob, George, Frank, Jerry, Rod, and Doug. Jacob says that something strange is going on here. He asks if they remember Dr. Carlson. They all do, and they're shocked to learn that he's dead too. In a car explosion, just like Paul. Jacob stands, ranting that now the 6 of them are going crazy, but Rod speaks up. Not me. Jacob concedes this, but says that the rest of them are going out of their fucking minds. Doug wonders if this has something to do with that night. Jacob is pacing, angry. He kicks a chair over and agrees that it has to do with something. He proposes that they go see the army. There's something that they're not telling them, but Rod is incredulous. He asks Jacob what makes him think the army's going to give him any answers. They're just going to be butting against a brick wall. Jacob surmises that they're going to need to get a lawyer, but Rod suggests a shrink instead. Addressing the whole group, Rod says that it was bad grass. That's all it was, and they're all paranoid. He says that there's no such thing as demons. Jacob stands with his back to his friends, the skyline standing proudly in the distance. We cut to an office where Geary, played by Jason Alexander, he blows his nose into a handkerchief. But
Yeah.
if we can have a moment.
Jason Alexander.
Yeah,
It's Duckman.
it is.
It's George Costanza. I heard on commentary that this film was shot in 1989, and I think Seinfeld premiered in 1989. But this was just before he had gotten Seinfeld.
That's
Oh, wow.
wild.
But people, like, Jason Alexander is not an actor to be slept on.
No.
John Paul and I
Uh-uh.
were talking about that last night, that I feel like he gets kind of like put into that box.
Yeah.
He's a fucking great actor.
He won a Tony.
He's incredible.
If not more than one, I don't know. But I know he won that one.
But I know about one of them.
Yeah.
But I was very surprised to see him. It was a treat.
Did you know he's the only actor from the lead cast of Seinfeld not to win an Emmy?
That is
What?
appalling.
That is very appalling.
Jerry Seinfeld?
Fucking
Get the
Jerry
fuck-
Seinfeld.
Shut your fucking mouth.
I would love to.
Now I'm just pissed
Yeah,
off.
I'm angry.
I don't even want to finish this.
Fuck this episode. I couldn't believe
Until
it.
next time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm honestly furious.
He was nominated like 8 times.
I'm pissed.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
But Gary steps around the other men before taking his seat behind his desk. Jacob sits across from him, listening as Gary apologizes. It would break his heart if he knew the number of people that came to him about the injustices in the world. Jacob insists that this is very important to them. The army did something to them, and they need to figure out what. Exasperated, Gary asks what's with these army guys. This isn't a walk to the library. It's the U.S. government. Red tape coming out of your ass. Jacob agrees that that's why they're here. They think he can help him. Gary quips, "What am I, Perry Mason?" He takes the last gulp of his drink and chews loudly on the ice. His eyes scan the men's faces and his cynicism weakens. Reluctantly, he vows to look into it. Doug asks if they have a chance, and Gary snaps back into lawyer mode. He's going to need sworn depositions from everyone, the name of every other member of their platoon or their survivors. Relief sweeps over the group, and Doug comments to Frank that this is great. Gary takes a bag of chips out of his desk, and the camera presses in on him as he mentions, if they do find out that the military is implicated in this, they all stand to make a lot of money. Munching on the chips, he says that he can't predict anything, but class action suits like this have been awarded pretty generous judgments. That wouldn't be so bad, would it? Jacob insists that they're not in it for the money, and the rest of the men murmur their agreement. With a shrug, Gary sets his snack aside and dusts off his hands. Leaning toward them, he asks, "All right, gentlemen, who wants to go first?" But we cut to the POV of a car where someone watches the men leaving the law office. They are clearly in celebration mode, smiling and clapping hands. But once they reach the bottom of the stairs, the group parts ways, Jacob heading in one direction and everyone else heading in the other. The person in the car dumps out the remainder of his cup of coffee and puts the pedal to the metal.
It was kind of wild to me because a lot of this film, if not all of it, we've really been living through Jacob's perspective.
Yeah.
And so it was really strange to be like, no, you are being watched, and have this shot of just some random.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like it was out of nowhere.
But that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. This whole like kind of piece in the middle, it really feels like another movie to me.
Yeah.
Again, I know I said it was pointing you in directions, but this is, and I said it not too long ago, but this is too for me where I'm just confused.
Yeah.
It does, like you're saying, it feels like a different movie, but it's just throwing stuff at us that, again, I've already known, but now, is this a fucking spy flick, or is this like what's happening?
But back at home, Jacob peers at his face closely as he shaves. A scar from his presence during the explosion of Paul's car mars his cheekbone. Leaned over the desk in the living room and jotting something down on a pad, Jesse calls to him that she put him a Hungry Man in the oven. He thanks her. She made him a salad too. It's in the fridge. He thanks her. She got him some apple juice too. He mutters to himself, "Not red cheek," and she confirms that it's red cheek. She warns him not to drink it all, and Jacob assures that he won't. After all that, she casually adds that his lawyer called. Jacob hurries into the room, the bottom of his face still covered in shaving cream. When he asks, she says that it was when he was in the shower. He wants to know why she didn't come and get him, but Jesse says that he didn't give her the chance. He hung up on her. She stands up and walks over to him, prefacing it with the plead for him to not get upset. Then she breaks the news. Gary isn't taking his case. Jacob is shocked, and his question of why comes out in a gust of air. Jesse tells him that Gary said he didn't have a case. Swaying on his feet, Jacob asks what he's talking about, but Jesse doesn't know. She says that he was very rude, but he said that Jacob's friends backed out. Jacob sighs that he doesn't believe this. He sits down at the desk and pulls out a drawer, shuffling through its contents and pushing his copy of The Stranger to the side.
So that's twice that we've seen this novel.
Yes.
I did read in a few analyses of this novel. There is a very important overlap, we will say, with the protagonist of that novel and Jacob Singer.
Oh.
Especially regarding where we are headed.
Okay.
But Jacob searches the desk, knocking over the picture of him and Jesse. She apologizes to him and says that she wants to stay, but she's already so late. Waiting for a response, she puts her jacket on, but Jacob is occupied, searching through the drawers. He finally finds his wallet in one of them, snatches it up, and slams the drawer back closed. Jesse promises that they'll talk when she gets home, and Jacob grunts his response distractedly. He goes to the phone and starts to dial a number, but Jesse still looks at him with concern. She asks if he's all right, and although his eyes are still intense, he tells her that he is. She kisses him and giggles when he has to wipe the shaving cream away from her face. Finally, Jesse leaves, and Jacob finishes dialing the number as he wipes the rest of the shaving cream away with a towel. Another phone rings, and we pan out to find Frank sitting next to it, almost expectantly. The room around him is dim and quiet. He answers, and Jacob explains that he just got a call from Gary saying that the guys backed out. Frank sighs as he stands and tells Jacob that that's right, they did. Jacob wants to know why, but Frank says it's hard to explain. Stuttering, Jacob asks him to try. Frank sits back down, allowing that war is war and things happen. Jacob doesn't accept this. He tells him that they were going to do something about it, but Frank asserts that there's nothing to do. Jacob takes a moment to think this over before asking Frank who's been talking to him.
His entire vibe is, I believe it was a boking accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, literally.
And I'm like, my understanding, I think that one of the guys in the car is in the room with him right now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Frank stares forward, wide-eyed, but he doesn't answer. Jacob asks him again what's going on. When he's met with further silence, he tells Frank that he's calling the other guys. Frank finally speaks up, speaking for everyone that they are not interested. Jacob reminds him that they all talked about this. They all have the same symptoms. Pacing his kitchen, he tells Frank what they already know. The army is hiding something from them and they need to figure out what it is. Abruptly, Frank says that he's got to go. Jacob pleads with him not to go yet, but Frank just tells him cryptically not to call back here. He hangs up the phone, but Jacob is still left pleading. He tells Frank that he can't do this by himself. He calls out Frank's name, but Frank is gone. In his home, Frank takes the phone off the hook and lies it on the desk. He looks across the room at Doug, who looks back at him blankly, and George, who averts his eyes, gently rocking himself.
That is where I was just shocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
I swear I thought it was going to be like a shadowy figure.
Yeah.
To just like with a gun or something.
Yeah.
But for it to be the rest of the men,
Yeah.
that's unbelievable.
That hurt.
Yeah, it did. Jacob goes to a courtroom where a hearing is concluding. Gary is finishing his business and making his way to the doors when Jacob accosts him. He demands to know who's been talking to him. The army? Trying to keep casual and curt, Gary continues his way through the benches, assuring that nobody's been talking to nobody. He just doesn't have a case. Jacob grabs onto his arm, but Gary snatches it away. He tells Jacob to keep his hands off him and leave him alone. He hurries out of the room, but Jacob is still following close behind. He pleads with Gary not to walk away from this. They need his help. But Gary asserts that what he needs is a doctor. Jacob insists that he doesn't. The army did something to him and he has to prove it. He needs Gary's help. Gary tells him desperately that he can't help him. He tells him once more to leave him alone. He starts down a long flight of steps, but Jacob hurries after him, unwilling to accept this. He wants to know what's wrong with Gary. Gary turns on him, finally offering to tell him what's wrong. He doesn't know Jacob from Adam. He walks into his office with a bizarre story, wanting him to check it out, so he did. Offended, he tells Jacob that he doesn't know what kind of fool he takes him for, but he's used and abused him and he doesn't like it. Jacob is confused. He asks how he used Gary. Continuing down the steps, he tells Jacob he checked with the Army's Bureau of Information. Jacob never even went to Vietnam.
We have just lost cabin pressure.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
I couldn't even believe this, but then at the same time, it's like, well, don't you think that that's what they would try to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? But it only makes you sound like you're more...
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
goddamn, he has no route.
No.
Yeah.
Jacob jumps in his way, stopping him from continuing down the stairs. He asks him what that's supposed to mean. Sidestepping him, Gary states that it means Jacob and his friends are crazy. They were all discharged on psychological grounds after war games in Thailand. Jacob grabs Gary's jacket, gripping fistfuls of cloth. He asks if he can't see what they're doing. It's all a lie. They were in Da Nang. He pleads with Gary, "You have to believe me." But Gary spits back, "Go fuck yourself, Singer." Still gripping his suit jacket, Jacob pushes him against the wall. I'm like, this is not the way to...
No.
This is not conducive. Gary cries out and Jacob finally gives up, leaving without another word.
Just a tidbit behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
This scene was originally written to be blocked, the two of them having this entire discussion in a hallway, but they filmed it that way, and the difficulty became the fact that Jason Alexander is 5'5" and Tim Robbins is 6'5".
Yeah.
And so they were talking about the height discrepancy, and the director said it was actually funny to watch this scene.
Yeah.
And so they changed it and moved them to the steps, and so you can kind of shrink that discrepancy between
Yeah.
them. And he said it worked better that way.
Yeah.
It does work better too because it feels more frantic the way that he keeps like jumping in front of him to stop him.
Yeah.
But I was wondering how fucking tall Tim Robbins was too because he looks like a giant.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, he's very tall.
I will say though, maybe if it was a couple of us, but for a whole group to be saying the same thing,
Yeah.
I would think it would be like, look, this seems funny. I just don't want to touch it.
That
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing as well, wouldn't it be weird to Geary if only one kept to the story?
Yeah.
That suddenly all the other ones backed out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that suspicious? And so I don't even believe I believe what he's saying about calling and checking in and everything,
Right.
but also I feel like maybe he had been gotten to as well a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Jacob walks down the steps outside and is immediately grabbed by two army officers played by John Capodice and John Patrick McLaughlin. They put their hands over his mouth and force him toward the car. Before his words are cut off, Jacob screams for help, even making eye contact with the woman pushing an old-fashioned stroller. And the stroller was like the one in the hall in his building that he put the baby doll into.
Ah.
I was wondering what the hell.
We said there's a lot of repetition.
Yeah. But the woman looks terrified and ultimately does nothing. Jacob continues to grunt and fight against them. And even when they force him into the car, he fights to keep the door open and he bangs his head again and again against the window. Still, despite his best efforts, they slam the door and drive away. As they speed, their tires squealing, they bash Jacob in the face with their elbows in the back seat. One of them speaks up, commenting that Singer is an appropriate name for a man who can't keep his mouth shut. He kind of ate with that one.
Yeah, that's really good. And you have been following me.
Yeah.
Oh, you're familiar with my work. Panting and shocked, Jacob asks who they are and what they want. The same one answers him that they've been watching him and his friends for a long time. They're frightening people with foolish talk about the army and experiments. He warns that Jacob is in over his head and men drown that way. Again.
God damn.
Yeah.
Giving him all the good shit.
The car is Tokyo drifting, driving recklessly. The man continues, warning that the army was part of another life and he needs to just let it lie.
Does the style of driving remind you of The Alley?
It does.
Yes.
Because I'm like, nobody's even fucking with the driver. Why is he driving like that? He tells Jacob that he hopes they've made their point. Jacob looks between the men, taking in what was said, but he chooses to strike back, swinging both of his fists and hitting the men in their faces. The car goes even more out of control in the chaos, and Jacob continues to fight. The gun that one of them is holding falls to the floor. When the officer tries to pick it up, Jacob kicks out, kicking him in the face and then shattering the window with his boot. The car ping-pongs, hitting either side of the road, and when Jacob finally manages to get the door open, the officers cling onto his jacket. Unable to jump out, Jacob screams for help. He's pulled back inside as the car continues to swerve, slamming into parked cars and fishtailing down the street. Jacob still fights back, both with the officers in the back seat with him and kicking out at the driver. It's like, God damn.
He's doing what he can.
Yeah.
He can. I mean, he is.
I will say, though, that driver got involved way too early. Like, they've got it handled. Keep your fucking eyes on the road. You're already doing a terrible job.
It's his first day, I think. Finally, Jacob is able to launch himself out of the car.
I will say once again, once we learn a little bit more about Jacob and the atrocities he has experienced and witnessed, I feel like the idea of reckless driving makes sense for it to be very prevalent, but we can't talk about it yet.
Holy shit.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a couple of times during this chase, and I know it's stunt people in there, but man, he's got the door open and he hit a couple times. I was like, oh my God, please, that thing. I was like, that's going to hit you in the fucking head, dude. Like, please get back in the car.
And again, just the way that it's shot.
Yeah.
It's
harrowing.
so, yeah.
But the car speeds away as Jacob rolls to the side of the street. He rolls at the feet of a man dressed as Santa, played by Jan Saint. He rings his bell dramatically in front of a donation bucket, but he gives no reaction to the car that just dumped a person and sped away. He does look at Jacob, though. He walks over to him slowly and menacingly. Bleeding from his nose and mouth, Jacob lies on his back in the street and looks up at him. Santa says, "You poor, poor man." He searches Jacob's jacket and jeans before pulling out his wallet. Sliding the wallet into his own back pocket, he begins to ring his bell again, proclaiming, "Ho, ho, ho, Merry Christmas."
I can't believe this shit.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
As if his day couldn't get any worse.
Or weirder.
Yeah. And you can't even do anything about it. You just got thrown out of a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to get up and chase him.
No.
Santa knows. He's checked his list.
But we cut to Jacob lying on a gurney as he's hurried down a hospital hallway by an attendant and an EMT bearer, played by Dennis Reuben Green and James Ellis Reynolds. The paramedic wheeling him reports to the doctor that he's in bad shape. Dr. Stewart, played by Scott Cohen, asks him what happened. Jacob shares in a quiet voice that it's his back. He can't move. He asks the doctor to call his chiropractor, but Dr. Stewart has more questions. Did he fall? The EMT says that Jacob informed them that he slipped and fell and he may have hit his head, not that he was thrown from a moving car.
Yeah.
But the doctor asks for identification and the EMT shoots that down. Jacob doesn't have a wallet. Jacob mutters, "He stole it." And when the doctor asks who, through gritted teeth, Jacob says, "Santa Claus."
Now I'm putting this on Jacob. He's telling the 100% truth.
Yeah.
One more sentence might help.
Yeah.
You know how that's going to
Yeah, because it's going to sound crazy.
It is. And to be that angry about
so
Santa
mad.
Claus, it does not. Come on. It's so sad.
The attendant and the doctor look back at him fretfully, but Jacob is adamant that he's going to get the bastard. It had Gabe's picture in it, and it's the only one he has. They finally come to a stop when they wheel Jacob into a room. The emergency ward nurse, played by Belina Logan, volunteers to page the orthopedist on call. And when Jacob asks earnestly again for his chiropractor, she assures him warmly that they're doing everything they can. She takes off Jacob's glasses as they unlatch him from the gurney. They move swiftly and efficiently, unsticking Velcro, shining a pin light into his eyes, pulling off his shoes and socks, and checking his vitals. His voice still low, Jacob gives his chiropractor's name, Louis DiNardo on Nostrand Avenue. As the attendant checks his blood pressure, the doctor warns that he has to move him a little bit to check his injuries. It might hurt a little. Jacob pleads with him not to, but the doctor moves him anyway, earning an audible crack from Jacob's back and a wail from his mouth. The doctor jokes that he doesn't have to ask if Jacob could feel that, but defeated, Jacob lies with his eyes closed, still weakly asking for Louis. The nurse asks who Louis is, but Jacob can't respond. He passed out.
Context clues just out the window?
Yeah.
When he literally gave first and last name,
Yeah.
said his position, and said where his office is.
Like, who's that guy?
Yeah. The hell is he talking about?
Is his brother or something?
Dr. Stewart proposes that they take this opportunity to get him to X-ray, and so they wheel him from the bright and sanitary room down a damp and dim hallway. They pull him past rooms gone derelict with disuse, filthy with abandon. A tense score whistles as Jacob is pulled along, awake now and wearing a white hospital gown. He peers around at the cracked and peeling ceiling, the busted out windows, and molded water damage. They wheel him quickly past a room, but a beam of light falls on an overturned bicycle, its front wheel still spinning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob's gaze lingers on this, and he questions, "Gabe?" But he is quickly pulled out of sight. The orderlies continue to pull him along, the wheels rattling and struggling to keep up on the uneven floor. our view a lot of the time returns to the ground. We're kind of looking up from behind the wheels of the gurney. Ruben said that Lyne suggested that they take the back wheel up slightly, like shorten it just a little bit. So it gives it this ability to never quite touch the floor, and it's spinning wildly and going around. And he was like, I never would have thought that just shortening it a little bit takes it up and provides this illusion of just, and it is unnerving as fuck.
Yeah.
It is. I think another thing that adds to it, and they did talk about it on commentary, is just how many cuts there are in the sequence.
Yeah.
You go from him to the wheel to the, like, it's you barely get a moment of rest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you feel it with that ratcheted tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, even this wheel can't just roll right. Like nothing is right.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to the X-ray.
No. This can't be where the X-ray
No.
is. There's no fucking way.
But they enter another area with dingy tile on the walls and floor, and they pass a woman in a patient's uniform, lying quietly on the wet ground in the fetal position. Jacob's eyes go wide as they pull him past more patients, shaking their heads and rocking themselves for comfort. One turns from the barred windows to peer at him. They keep going, passing a man banging his head rhythmically against a glass window, leaving a smear of blood behind. Another stares vacantly as Jacob is wheeled by. They keep going, past a naked man lying motionless on the floor, beneath a man on the grated ceiling above, scurrying around like an animal. A man rolling aimlessly in a straitjacket, a bleach blonde woman breastfeeding a baby. The score grows as disturbed and disjointed as these visuals, and suddenly, the dirty tile around them is splattered with blood. The orderlies pull him through a plastic divider, and the already struggling wheels snag on discarded chunks of flesh, glide, and bright red blood. Jacob begins to sob, oblivious to a pile of abandoned arms thrown flippantly into a corner. And just before he's wheeled out of sight, we see a man, his bulky torso gripping onto a metal frame. His covered face is lit harshly from the bulb above it as it shakes back and forth, frantic, frenetic. Jacob watches him in horror until he is finally pulled out of sight. We already talked about Francis Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Another influence on Lyne was Joel Peter Witkin. I would implore everyone to go look at his 1976 photo titled Man with No Legs. It is literally what we just saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a direct inspiration. And his work is very striking and disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
I love this sequence very much.
Yeah.
This just descent into hell, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did hear on commentary that this was filmed at an abandoned hospital in Staten Island.
Ugh.
Oh, wow.
I think accented with a lot of different things by the production designer,
Mm-hmm.
but still just the use of this space and the way that it changes every time they seem to round a certain corner.
Yeah.
It is so disturbing, but so fantastic.
Yes. But out of the frying pan and into the fire, Jacob is strapped down onto an operating table. In the silence of the room, evil doctor, played by Davidson Thompson, blows into his glove before snapping it on.
That's his credit?
That's his credit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He looks down at Jacob as a metal restraint is lowered to hold his head in place. Other doctors, all in their whites, stand behind the evil doctor, watching with an ominous curiosity. The restraint is tightened around Jacob's temples, and between that and the restraints around his ankles and wrists, he is rendered immobile. The attendant set up tools, but one steps up to get ready. Through the mirror set above him, Jacob sees that in the surgeon's whites, beneath the cap covering her hair, it's Jezzy. His voice barely above a whisper, Jacob calls to her, imploring her to get him out of here. But it's the evil doctor who interrupts, asking where Jacob wants to go. His voice trembling, Jacob tells him simply, home. Jezzy looks down on him with some compassion, but the doctor responds flatly that this is his home. He's dead.
Oh, all right then.
Yeah.
I did want to add, too, that it was Lyne's idea to have Jezzy here in the operating room
I was wondering what to make of that
Yeah.
as far as your interpretation of it.
I think here it is just that where he's like, you're dead. And it's like, I guess like, oh, well, yeah. But everything to me, I was just kind of like, so is none of this real?
Well, yeah. Interesting point.
Yeah.
I think that having Jesse here really, again, lends itself to that second theory. But we can't talk about that yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go forward, Lyne said that Tim Robbins' performance in this scene moved him to tears.
I can understand why.
Yeah.
I think that it is just heart-wrenching and heartbreaking.
Hell yeah.
Tears pour from Jacob's eyes as he questions what the doctor just said about him being dead. He quickly denies it with a nervous laugh. He's not dead. He just hurt his back. The evil doctor asks what he is then, and his face shaking with rage, Jacob asserts that he's alive. The evil doctor questions what he's doing here then, and dissolving into tears once more, Jacob admits that he doesn't know. Squeezing his eyes tight, he assures that this isn't happening, but the evil doctor asks, what is happening then? Jacob just asks again to be let out of here, but tying his mask over his mouth, the evil doctor maintains that there is no out of here. He's been killed. Doesn't he remember? Looking past Jacob, he gives a nod to someone. Another doctor leans over with a syringe. Flanked by cheeks marred with deep scars, the doctor's lips are pursed with anticipation. But above them, where his eyes should be, his flesh is smooth and unbroken. The eyeless doctor, played by Ed Jupp Jr., lowers his syringe. I'm scared to death.
Maybe I am dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a terrible way to find out.
No shit.
Well, just to be told callously by a doctor.
Well, this
And then
situation.
what's about to happen?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Jacob trembles with horror as he looks up at him. But the doctor plunges the tip of the syringe right through the center of Jacob's forehead, and he screams.
Did he go to Hollywood Upstairs Medical College too? What the fuck is that?
Yes. In Vietnam, our view is of the branches framing the sky again as we're pulled along. As Jacob's scream fades, the voices of medics clamor with urgency and worry, warning to be careful and that they're losing him. In a clean and regular hospital, a nurse played by Carol Schneider opens the door to Jacob's room. She lets in Sarah, Jed, and Eli, warning that Jacob is still pretty doped up and he probably won't be able to talk or even recognize them. Sarah assures her that it's okay. She just wants to see him. The nurse excuses herself as Sarah and the boys walk over to Jacob's bedside.
So again, these moments of confusion that set in because Jesse said that Eli came over to their apartment and dropped off these photos. And at least in this reality, we see that Eli is very young.
Yeah.
What, like 10 years old? I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
So he like went all the way through the city by himself and dropped off these photos at this apartment? Like you're starting to see so many things that just do not fit.
Yeah.
We didn't like it when Andy did it. We don't like it thinking this kid did that.
No.
Yeah, no. The nurse excuses herself as Sarah and the boys walk over to Jacob's bedside. They speak to him reassuringly, and Sarah leans over him, explaining that they heard what happened. I'd be like, what part? Because a lot has happened.
And then Santa Claus robbed me.
Yeah, no shit.
And then I went to hell, and there was an
something.
operating room.
There was a guy shaking his head. He was very sad that I was there, I think.
The doctor was mean.
His credit was...
Jacob opens his eyes and gazes up at her, but the only thing he can weakly express as a tear of gratitude escapes his eye is I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm not dead. With a chuckle, Sarah assures him that he's not dead. He just hurt his back and it'll take some time. Jed agrees. They said it'll be a month. Cracking up, Eli tells his dad to just hang in there. Sarah shoves her younger son gently, admonishing him that it's not funny. She turns her attention back to Jacob, caressing his cheek. She tells him, her eyes filling with tears, that for whatever it's worth, she still loves him. That's when I'm like, fuck! It's too good.
Yeah.
But from the other side of the room, a voice croaks, "Dream on." Jacob looks over and begins to sob, begging no. Sarah is confused and asks him to tell her what she can do. Jacob closes his eyes and tells her sincerely, "Help me." Sarah brings her face down to Jacob's and holds him in an embrace.
Who does that voice belong to?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Because it's so understood to Jacob.
Yeah.
But to us, it's just like this almost like haunting like spirit.
Yeah.
But later, Louis struts angrily down the halls, yelling out for Jacob. He walks past a line of people in hospital beds, and when two nurses, played by Becky Ann Baker and Diane Kagan, shush him and demand that he keep his voice down, he only yells louder for Jacob Singer. Jacob answers him from down the hall, and Louis isn't satisfied until he bursts into his room. He looks at Jacob, confined to a bed with his casted leg raised and hovering over it, and he asks what they've done to him. He immediately begins to unhook Jacob's leg, questioning, "What is this, the Middle Ages?" The nurses gather in the doorway, demanding that he not touch Jacob, but this doesn't deter Louis. He yells that this is barbaric. Why don't they just burn him at the stake and put him out of his misery? Two orderlies, played by Brad Hamler and Byron Mims, burst in as the nurses flinch at his words. They demand that Louis is going to have to leave, but Louis snatches up a crutch and holds it like a baseball bat, warning them not to get near him. He gives a false swing, promising to wrap it around their necks if they come near.
Calm down, man. I appreciate you coming in here to save me.
He came in hot.
Yeah.
The orderlies try to calm Louis, but he just gently helps Jacob to raise himself out of bed. When one of the nurses repeats again that he can't do that, he makes full eye contact when he loudly rattles open a wheelchair. He helps Jacob into it, even taking a moment to carefully slide Jacob's glasses onto his face. When an orderly says again that he can't do this, he just booms at them to get out of his way, and he wheels Jacob right past them. He says simply as they leave that he's upset. He's really upset. He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, how many times are y'all going to be like, you can't do this? He's doing it.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah. Nobody stopped him.
No.
In Louis' office, he has Jacob on the table again, shirtless and face down. Feeling around his spine, he muses that Jacob really did it this time. Jacob asks him earnestly if he's dying, but Louis laughs. From a slipped disc? That would be a first. Jacob shares that he was in hell and he doesn't want to die. Louis assures him that he'll do what he can. When Jacob turns back toward him and elaborates, it's all pain. Louis just instructs him to keep his head straight. He adjusts Jacob, cracking his back loudly and causing Jacob to gasp. Louis asks if he's ever read Meister Eckhart. Jacob admits that he hasn't, and Louis wonders how he got his doctorate without having read him. He adjusts him again before instructing Jacob to turn to his right. When Jacob immediately goes left, Louis reminds him, "Your other right." Jacob follows instruction correctly this time, and Louis quips that he's a real basket case. Getting him into proper position, Louis shares that Eckhart saw hell too. He says that the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. Your memories and attachments are all burned away. But they're not punishing you. They're freeing your soul. Jacob's eyes are wide with fear, but when Louis cracks him again, he groans. Louis continues that the way Eckhart sees it, if you're afraid of dying and you're holding on, you'll see the devils tearing your life away. But if you've made peace, then the devils are really angels freeing you from the earth. It's all in how you look at it. With some love, Louis tells Jacob not to worry. When Jacob finally nods in agreement, Louis gets back to work on him. With one final adjustment, he laughs, celebrating that they got it. Even Jacob smiles at this as Louis guides him onto his back. He lifts the table, proposing that they let Jacob try to stand up. He encourages him that he can do it, and he's right. Jacob peels himself away from the table and takes nervous steps toward Louis. But when he's able to continue forward unaided, his face brightens into a big smile. He looks back at Louis in disbelief, and Louis agrees with the heartfelt hallelujah.
Burning your memories like photographs in an incinerator?
Yeah.
Whoop! Yeah, probably like that.
I mean, is that what we're talking about here?
Could be.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, he said?
He said hallelujah.
Yeah. Feels very angel-y. I like this scene because I like their dynamic and I like Louis as a character.
Me
Right.
too.
But I will say there are moments specifically from Louis that are very, very on the nose.
Yeah.
And they kind of telegraph, I don't want to say everything, but I don't know how else to finish that sentence.
No, I agree. I like this, and I enjoy what we're like. I guess the message, or kind of like what we're supposed to get out of it.
Mhm.
But
I think the only way that it could be less palatable for me is if Louis were played by the writer or director of the film.
okay.
Shut the hell up. I get what you guys are saying. I get it. I get it. I can't say that I disagree either.
And it's hard to really say anything because we haven't finished the movie yet.
Mhm.
Right. Back in his apartment, Jacob picks up a cigar box with some trepidation. He sits on his bed before opening it with reverence. He carefully unfurls his honorable discharge from the U.S. Armed Forces. Behind that is his Master of Arts degree from the University of New York. He sets these to the side and rummages through the box again, pulling out pictures of Vietnam, of his friends, transporting him back to those days in quick glimpses. He pulls out ammo, Vietnamese currency, his dog tags, which he looks at with disdain. He pulls out a paper, a note written red in a childish scrawl. Dear Daddy, I love you. Please come home. Jed got a frog. Eli lost my key. Mom wants you to send her money. Love, Gabe. XOXO. Jacob is still smiling when he begins to cry, remembering teaching Gabe how to ride a bike. We see Gabe on a snowy sidewalk before walking his bike into the street. When he drops his baseball cards, he stoops down to pick them up. In the room now, Jacob sobs, and his quiet reflection is shattered when we return to the street. The desperate squeal of brakes, the unmistakable racket of metal hitting metal, and the tragic scrape of a bike being dragged across the road.
I was kind of shocked that they showed that
Yeah.
because it seemed like they were cutting away tastefully to not show that.
To
Yes.
imply it, yeah. And then it's like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't think I needed that.
Yeah. Through the mirror across from Jacob, we see him stare forward, lost. But he snaps to attention when he sees Gabe, just out of focus, running across the apartment. He reaches out to the mirror, to his son's reflection. But as soon as his fingers touch the surface, he gets a flash of a screaming man, whipping his head back and forth violently. The man in the doorway at the party, his head vibrating as he yelps distorted cries. Jacob covers his face, his eyes bulging and darting in his fear and misery. Behind him, Jessie approaches the doorway, clutching a bag of groceries. When she calls his name, he panics, dropping the box and jumping to his feet. Jessie assures him that it's just her. She asks where he's been. She's been worried sick. He was gone for 2 days and he didn't even call her. Jacob says that he was at the hospital, and she asks which one because she called every hospital in the city. I don't think
Yeah.
I'm not calling her a liar, but I don't
Yeah, I don't believe
you.
Yeah.
Before he can answer her, the phone rings. Jesse goes to answer it and he begs her not to. Aggravated with confusion, Jesse asks him why not. Jacob tells her that he's not here. She hasn't seen him. With the rules established, Jesse answers the phone. The voice on the other end immediately asks for Jacob. She looks up at him and answers that he's not here. He hasn't been home all night. The man on the other end asks when she's expecting him, but Jesse shrugs that she doesn't know. The man asks her to relay a message. He was in Vietnam in '63 and there was a secret experiment. Jacob perks up when Jesse asks, Vietnam? What experiments? He grabs the phone away from her and identifies himself. The man speaks quickly, explaining that he was in country in '68 and was part of a chemical warfare unit out of Saigon. They conducted secret experiments for the government and he needs to see him. He asks Jacob if he wants to know more. Jacob does, and they arrange a meeting. The man gives the address and tells him to meet him in front of a coffee truck. Jacob asks how he'll know who he is, and the man assures him, "You already know me, Jacob." He tells him to make sure he's not followed, and Jacob agrees. He hangs up the phone, muttering that he knew it. He starts to get dressed, and when Jesse asks who was on the phone, he tells her that it was a chemist that was part of a chemical warfare unit. He tells her that he knew there was something going on, but Jesse's eyes are filled with tears when she asks him sincerely to please not go. All Jacob can do is wrap his arms around her in a tight hug and apologize.
I find her desperation to keep him in the apartment very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it could, on one hand, read just as concern.
Mm-hmm.
She's worried everything that he's saying, him leaving to go and meet this stranger who claims to know him.
Right.
Or maybe it's for another reason.
Yeah.
We cut to Jacob waiting outside the coffee truck. He's approached by the man who warned him about the oncoming car, who pulled him away from the wreckage of Paul's explosion. We finally learn his name, Michael Newman. He tells Jacob that he told him he'd know him because he's been tracking him for a long time. Jacob asks why he's been following him, and Michael explains it's because he's one of the survivors. Michael eyes a police car as it rolls by, and he warns Jacob that it's not safe to talk here. He invites him to follow him, and Jacob does.
I did hear on commentary this scene by this coffee truck.
Yeah.
The director said that it was 25 below.
Oh my God.
What? Yeah, temperature-wise, and said that it was almost impossible to shoot this scene and that the actors could barely even speak.
Well, damn.
And you can see when the scene starts, Tim Robbins is like, "Get me out of here." You can tell.
So the character Michael Newman, Matt Craven, I remember him from X-Men First Class in 2011. But he was also in A Few Good Men in 92, Crimson Tide in 95, and Devil in 2010.
Ah, Devil.
Devil.
Yeah.
He just has such a recognizable
Yes.
face.
Yeah.
He's another one of those.
Yeah.
But they regroup in an empty and desolate area to finally have the enlightening conversation. As we pan over to them, Michael is explaining that in '68 he got busted and lost the best LSD he'd ever made. He figures that he was going to get 20 years in prison if he was lucky. He ends up at Rikers and suddenly he's pulled from his cell. They put him in a waiting room with 4 decorated army colonels standing on either side. They tell Michael that if he comes to work in a lab in Vietnam for 2 years, they'll wipe all his charges. He admits that he'd only been in jail for about 13 hours, but he already assumed that Nam couldn't be any worse. Jacob mutters that shows how little he knew, and Michael agrees. He says that the next thing he knows, he's in Saigon, working in a top secret lab, synthesizing mind-altering drugs. But it was the dark side, isolating specific properties, not street stuff. They were tasked with making a drug that increased aggressive tendencies. He says that they were worried the soldiers were too soft and not fighting to their potential. They wanted something that would stir them up and make them mad. They walk as they talk, and they now enter maybe an abandoned factory. I don't know where the fuck they are.
I feel very nervous about all of these places.
Yeah. But Michael concludes that they were supposed to make something to tap into their rage, and they did. He says that it's the most powerful thing he's ever seen. He's had his fair share of bad trips, but nothing compares to the fury of the ladder. Jacob asks, the ladder? Michael explains that that's what they called it. It's a fast trip straight down the ladder, right to primal fear, to base anger. Primal Fear is a great film, by the way.
Indeed. Is it? It's horrific what happens in that
I
film.
would say that it's horrific. Don't threaten me with a good time. He tells Jacob again that it was powerful before realizing that he doesn't have to tell Jacob. He already knows. He continues that they did experiments on monkeys and it worked. They bashed each other's heads in, gouged eyes, chewed off tails, and the government loved it. But then they made them try it on Charlie. Michael's chin trembles as he goes on with his shameful story. They took POWs, who Michael admits were just kids. They put them in a courtyard and fed them huge doses. Beginning to cry, Michael says that they were even worse than the monkeys. He didn't know people could do those things. Michael gets himself back under control and tells Jacob that there was a big offensive coming up and everyone knew. They were even talking about it in Time magazine. The government was scared because it was obvious that they couldn't win. Plus, morale was down. He tells Jacob that he remembers, and his face twisted with all of this information. Jacob agrees that he does remember. Michael details that that's when they decided to use the ladder on one test battalion, Jacob's. Jacob's posture slumps as he's physically hit with this knowledge, but Michael isn't done. He says that it was an infinitesimal amount in the food supply, just to prove that it was effective in the field. They assumed that Jacob's unit would have the highest kill rate out of everyone, and that was true, except not in the way that they thought it would be true. Jacob steps forward and admits that no one can remember that night. He gets flashes, but they don't make sense to him. He asks Michael sincerely, what happened? He asks if there was an offensive. Michael says that a couple days later there was, and it was fierce, but Jacob's battalion never saw it. Jacob asks for confirmation that there was a fight, and Michael says that there was, but not with the Viet Cong. After a pause, Jacob asks, with who? Michael struggles to answer, even turning away from Jacob for a moment before he looks him back in the eye bravely. He swallows before answering. You killed each other. Jacob doesn't understand. Michael continues that there was no discrimination. It was brother against brother. They tore each other to pieces, and he knew that it would happen. He screams that he fucking warned them. He kicks out, causing panicked birds to vacate. Jacob reels with this knowledge, and we get flashes. Soldiers pressing forward, screaming, enraged as they fire their rifles.
Those birds were very reminiscent of the caged bird at the party.
Yes. Michael asks, what did he know? He was just some hippie chemist. Weak on his feet, Jacob slides down the wall until he's sitting. Michael says that he talked to the guys that bagged the bodies, and they were in even worse shape than Jacob. They saw what was left. He confesses that he needed to find Jacob because he feels responsible. The ladder was his baby. Jacob buries his head in his hands and gives no reply. Lyne had said that the scene with Michael was difficult because it was so expository, and he tried to keep it visually interesting with the staging and like with the birds. But he said that Matt Craven's ability to give it a rise and fall is what made it successful.
I can absolutely agree because I never feel taken out of it, and I never feel like, oh, he's talking a lot.
Yeah, no.
Never do I feel that way.
Also, right after this, there is a deleted scene where he tells him that he has an antidote for him. And he takes Jacob to a hotel room and gives him the antidote. It's like a serum. He has him lay down on the bed, and Jacob starts freaking out. He's screaming, and Michael just is like repeating for him to relax, and the ceiling cracks open, and this weird fleshy thing with an eyeball comes out and is looking at him.
Good Lord.
And the ceiling is bleeding on him. He's covered in blood, and like their air is blown, and it gives his mouth, like, you know, when you blow air into somebody's mouth and it's like that. It's like a cone kind of.
You're losing me.
The scene looks better when you watch it.
I'm not doing it justice.
It does sound funny.
I'm getting very tired. But it's a lot, and it's scary. And Michael is like, relax, and Jacob starts freaking out, and he jumps on top of him, and he's like, just relax, and he's like pouring more serum in his mouth. It's horrifying. And like it continues, and then it kind of falls away. That I think he tries to go to like a train station. He's trying to vacate and leave, and it crumbles. It's none of this happened. Like, he's still, whatever is happening to him is happening to him.
I feel like I would have appreciated that. I understand in this version of the film what Michael gives him is knowledge.
Yeah.
But there is no solution to anything. It's just like, this is what happened.
Sorry.
Yeah. And that's the end of it. And then it kind of leaves it in this strange place for what we see next.
Yeah.
And there are a few threads that you have started as like a bit of an explanation for what is going on.
Yeah.
And then you don't really tie any of them up.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting to me because that scene was kind of long. It was like 14 minutes. Like, it was long. And I had read that they cut out a lot of the horror elements in the last bit of the film because I guess test audiences said it was too much. But and it is disturbing. Like, I would suggest finding it and watching it because it's creepy as hell. And it's odd to me that it's such a huge chunk to take out.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I guess when that ends, we find Jacob where we're about to find him right now. So you don't lose anything narratively, but it was a cool sequence.
I just, again, our never-ending battle against test audiences.
Correct. That night, as steam rises up from the vents, choking our view with its fog, Jacob runs down the street. When a taxi comes toward him, he hails it and jumps inside. Rain pelts the windows, and Jacob sits back, letting out a long sigh. He tells the driver that he's going to Brooklyn, but the driver, played by Sam Coppola, counters, "Not with me, you're not."
It staggered me that he trusted a taxi.
Yeah.
That's true.
After everything that he's been through, and then this dude says this, is like, oh, great, I'm going to hell again.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I got to do all that shit again?
God damn it.
The driver says that he gets lost in Brooklyn, but Jacob assures him that he knows the way. He digs in his pockets and takes out cash. Thrusting it at the driver, he tells him that this is all the money he has. He asks him to please take him home. The driver takes the money and faces the road, placated. He asks Jacob where home is. He drives them down the street, but in the back seat, Jacob sways on the verge of sleep. But the cabbie's license catches his eye. Garzero A. The rhythm of the car sends a hanging cross gently chiming against the taxi meter again and again. Safe, in the back of this car, on his way home, Jacob finally closes his eyes.
I feel like if we had that scene with the antidote, everything that we had just watched him go through, I would understand more his trust in this taxi.
Okay.
Yeah, and him sprinting down the street.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Michael's like, I'm sorry, man. And he's like, he just ran away.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like the other thing as well with what Paul had said about the religious iconography and the Bible not helping, it would have been better if he said that it did help a little or something.
Yeah.
Because him seeing this cross against the meter, it seemed like it calmed him down.
Oh, yeah.
But if it doesn't help at all, why would it?
Well, I'm built different. Maybe it just didn't help Paul.
Yeah. He was using it wrong.
He was
Yeah.
doing it wrong. He didn't know what he was doing. But we see him again in the jungle, accosted by the business end of a bayonet. His eyes go wide with pain and shock as the blade pierces him, pulling his insides to the outside. At this memory, Jacob leans forward in his seat. But back on that horrific day, we finally see Jacob's assailant, played by Perry Lang, just another soldier, dosed and desperate. His face slackens with realization as he looks at Jacob, who falls to the jungle floor. In the back of the taxi, a somber piano plays as Jacob sits with his new knowledge and the cross finally stops its chiming. They pull up to a building, and when Jacob steps out of the car, he's greeted excitedly by the doorman, played by Thomas A. Carlin. Jacob is looking up at the building longingly, but focuses on the doorman when he calls him Dr. Singer and shakes his hand, musing that it's been a long time. Jacob's army jacket is open, exposing his dog tags resting on his white t-shirt. The doorman offers to get him help, but Jacob declines this with a smile. He heads inside the building, but as the glass door closes, the doorman peers at him, his friendly smile replaced by a look of suspicion.
What's that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I wondered that too, because I noticed that and I was like, why you look at him like that?
You were just so kind.
Yeah.
Thunder rumbles outside when Jacob finally steps into the apartment he lived in with his family. The foyer is tinged in a cold blue as he crosses through, calling after his kids. He stops in the dining room, where a sliced pie sits in the center of the table. Plates still adorned with crumbs are left behind. Textbooks lie open, accessorized by pencils with bright pink erasers. Jacob scans the room, looking past the covered piano to a cluster of framed photos. In one, Sarah gazes lovingly at a baby lying on a bed. Jacob picks it up, and when the tears come again, he sets it back down. He sits in the room, tinged with blue once again, and we hear Louie's voice. If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see the devils tearing your life away. If you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth. Letting these words wash over him like the rain that pours outside, Jacob lowers his head. A heartbeat pulses as we see a red kite dancing across a bright blue sky. It cuts to black. Gabe sprints across the beach, going so fast that his little hat falls off. It cuts to black. The images throb with the steady beating of the heart. Sarah cradles Gabe as a baby on a bright day. All three boys, Jed, Eli, and Gabe, smile and wave, wet with sprinklers and giddy with the magic of summer. Jacob playfully dingles Gabe upside down. The two walk down the sidewalk together, away from us, each navigating their own bike. The heart only pulses once this time as it cuts again to black. Jacob wakes in the living room, sitting on the same couch where he fell asleep. The sunlight glows through the window, and when Jacob hears the music of a toy, he gets up. He finds Gabe sitting on the stairs, winding up his toy and putting it to his ear to hear the tinny song that it plays. Jacob is surprised to see his son, but Gabe just smiles and tells him, "Hi, Dad." Jacob's confused features soften into a smile, and he sits down with Gabe. He lays his head on his son's small chest, and as Gabe hugs his father, he promises that it's okay. The music swells, and in his small voice, just above a whisper, Gabe invites Jacob to come upstairs with him. Jacob takes his son's hand and ascends until they're blotted out by the blindingly brilliant brightness at the top.
It's beautiful.
I was like crying.
Yeah.
It is just heart-wrenching. It's sweet. It's sad. It's just all of the things. This was a suggested change after test audiences watched the original cut that Lyne really leaned into, because in the original ending, he comes to this apartment and he finds Jesse here, and Jesse transforms in that shaky way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's suddenly that like black cloth over her head. She's shaking, and when he pulls the cloth off, it's himself. It's him looking at himself.
Oh, shit.
And so it's this moment of you realize what Jezzy is and what she represents and kind of what is fueling what we've experienced so far. And I think they were just like, that's fucking sad. Like, that's terrible. They wanted to bring Gabe back, and Lyne, like I said, agreed with them. He said that it was a fulfillment and a completion of this journey that we've been on with Jacob.
I feel like there's a way to do both.
Yeah.
I think you have him have this experience at maybe the apartment that he shared with Jezzy.
And then he goes home.
And that's why he's running down the street and catches the cab to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a much better.
Yeah. I mean, it is still cool, the other ending.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think you're right. Maybe you could do something to fit them both in there.
Because we were talking off mic and we realized the last time we see Jezzy is when she tells him not to go meet Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the end of her involvement in this film.
Yeah.
It would be much better if there were a connection back to where we've seen him for most of the film.
Yeah, because she does play somewhat of a caretaker for him through most of the movie.
Yeah.
With some odd moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that would be the payoff for at least her arc.
Yeah.
But this dazzling light is replaced by an overhead lamp. A field doctor, played by Michael Tomlinson, uses it as he peers down at Jacob. Jacob lies on the table with staring eyes. His shirt is open, as is his abdomen, the slice from the bayonet on full display. The field doctor finally gives up, switching off his lamp and reporting, he's gone. The other doctor, played by A.M. Markswatch, sighs deeply as he peels his gloves off.
Lyne said that the elder doctor was actually a doctor in Vietnam.
Wow.
The first doctor takes off Jacob's dog tags. Although he's dead, Jacob's lips are curved into a sweet smile. The doctor notes that he looks kind of peaceful. He did put up a hell of a fight, though. They start to leave the tent, but stop to ask the man behind the desk what the soldier's name was. He tells them, Singer, Jacob Singer. The doctors step out into the day, helicopters whirring as other soldiers pace back and forth in front of the open door. Al Jolson begins to croon, Sonny Boy, and it cuts to black. We get white text on screen that reads, it was reported that the hallucinogenic drug BZ was used in experiments on soldiers during the Vietnam War. The Pentagon denied the story. Al Jolson continues to sing, and over a black and white image of Jacob and Gabe walking away with their bikes, the credits roll. So, what did you guys think of Jacob's Ladder?
I really enjoyed this movie. Like, some of the stuff that they do in there, I said earlier that it did confuse me in parts, and I'll be honest, it did. But talking about it a little more, I think this is one of those movies. The more I watch it, the more I can feel like liking it. You know what I mean? The more I will enjoy it. Not saying that I didn't, but there was just so much that it throws at you. And the ending is good, and I did enjoy the message of it. I just feel like we took the long way to get there. And then you kind of already told us what was going on. I feel like that does take a little bit of the punch away from what we find out at the end. You know what I mean? But this was one hell of a fucking movie.
No, I agree. I feel like I know that I was a little heavy when it comes to like critiquing the
Talking
narrative.
shit? Yeah.
Right.
Well, I wasn't talking shit. Come
Well, there
on.
was the times the movie was a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, and it really, especially when it comes to Louis.
Yeah.
And the difficulty is how much I like that character and the scenes featuring him.
Yeah.
I just feel like there are ways around it to where you don't have to tell us everything.
Yeah.
You know, and so the moments like that, it's kind of like, you know what it is I love so much about this movie that the moments like that stick out even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're doing everything else just so amazingly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these weird moments like that you're like, why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? I was just disappointed is all. But I think the thing is that even with those critiques, I still feel like I legitimately love this film.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that it's very ambitious in its storytelling and the way that a lot of things aren't holding your hand.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are kind of annoying and disappointing.
Yeah.
But when they're not and you let these really surreal moments breathe,
Yeah.
they're fantastic. And you're like, this is really excellent filmmaking.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely, it's going to get a really good score for me. I just want to put that out there. But the thing is I just feel like, especially when dealing with the ending,
Mm-hmm.
I really like this idea of bringing everything back.
Right.
We're going to tie up loose ends in a way that honestly still leans heavily into that surrealism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The antidote not fucking working. Him going back to Jezzy, oh shit, she's been a demon this whole time that's been trying to keep him from accepting his
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
And then he finally does. And it's his son who takes him to heaven.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, to put all of it together, sure, it's going to be 2 hours and 10 minutes. I don't give a fuck. I love it.
We've already been here for an hour 53.
Yeah, give me more. Give me 20 more minutes.
Oh no, I know. Take that shit away.
No, you guys both have really good points. I did want to kind of elaborate on something that we kept alluding towards that we couldn't really spell out, but the two theories, obviously, and the one that both Ruben and Lyne have explicitly stated is that Jacob died in Vietnam, and this entire film that we've experienced is his dying journey. The other way that you can look at it is that he has died / is dying, and he is in purgatory, and one side is Jezzy and the other side, and you know, everything that she symbolizes.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is Sarah and everything that she symbolizes. And I think that there are these moments where, again, Jezzy's like, well, you don't have to say it, but you're still thinking about her. Well, do you love me? Well, there are these moments that really, really feel like a crossroads, a choice, a limbo, a purgatory. And they've explicitly stated, like, no, that's not what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
this is you learning to accept that you are dying.
I think it's odd to me because as we talked about it, you do see these moments more and more,
Yeah.
down to those ads in the subway.
Yes.
Like things like this that pop up that you're like, oh, it does feel like this, almost like a tug of war between heaven and hell for his soul.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and then I got to admit, like the text at the end, before we see the still black and white photograph of him and his son,
Yeah.
I feel like you're setting up, you might be doing too much.
That is what I was kind of talking about at the beginning.
Mhm.
That I will go on record. I fucking love this movie. The first time I saw it, I was so blown away that this did not even occur to me.
Uh-huh.
But this is what I mean by you can't do both. If this is really what happened, what we saw at the beginning, because Ruben straight up says, like, that making of starts with him saying, what happens at the beginning in Vietnam is what's happening right now. Everything else is a dream.
All right.
If that is true, then the ladder, the dosing, the BZ, whatever we're talking about with that card at the end, it can't also be happening. If they were dosed, Jacob, even in his subconscious, even in this journey that we're taking with him, would have no way of knowing that.
He would have had to have actually made it back to New York City.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that I would, in my mind, if this is the story that I'm trying to tell, maybe something, I don't know why this other soldier is the one that murdered him, but that could be Jacob rationalizing in his mind that this other soldier, his brother, would not have done this to him. They were pinned against each other. There's some other, it's a conspiracy. It's the government. It's the army. There's some other reason, because this would never have really happened. And so I think that if we maybe got that a little bit, because the way that I am walking away from this movie, I think that they've told me that Jacob is dead and that we have gone through the process of him accepting his own death. And also the government dosed them and they all killed each other. And I feel like I can't reconcile both of those things being true in the context of the story that I was given.
And I know they both, Lyne and Rubin, did a lot of research and found a lot of articles detailing potential experimental things. I feel like if that's the point of this, then we need to either lean into that completely, or we need to lean into the other thing. It's exactly as you're saying. It just doesn't make any sense for both. Both can't be happening. The only other solution I have is potentially changing the conversation of the doctors at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As in, he's hearing Al Jolson, he's hearing this. It's all, you know. But outside of that, there really would be no way to connect it all.
Yeah.
That's my only thing. And then the card at the end, I think the first time I saw it, I was just like, God damn, dude. Like, I was so fucking blown away. But having to stop and really think about it and do this, I'm like, but wait, though. He wouldn't know that.
No.
He didn't have a chance to know that. None of what we saw really happened.
They have a lot of get out of jail free cards as far as timelines and situations and dreams and everything not really lining up or making sense.
Yeah.
Because you can say, oh, this is his dream. It's his memory. It's all these memories.
Yeah.
Flashing before his eyes in a very peculiar and surreal way before he dies. But that is the only one.
It's the only thing for me. Because even Elizabeth Pena had said that she feels like Jesse is just the amalgamation of every woman that Jacob knows or has met. The screenwriter was like, she could just be a woman that he thinks is hot that he works with at the post office and that he never did anything with, but she symbolizes this other, you know, path that he could have taken or whatever. And all of that works. His brain is firing off. She could be anything. She could be completely made up. But, and then her name being Jezebel, you know what I mean? Like it tracks. That is the one thing for me that I just can't, and I tried so hard, but I can't make it work. But that's me. If it all gels for you, I love that for you. And I'm a little bit jealous because I really wanted to for me. I also wanted to point out the similarities and probably influence that a short story occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge had on Jacob's Ladder that I could not mention before because it is basically the exact same thing. Then I'm sorry for spoiling a short story that is 124 years old. 134 years old.
You've had time.
But we can kind of just slide into ratings as well. I think I've already stated I really, really love this film. I have, like I said, the one issue that in my mind it seems simultaneously nitpicky and fucking world shattering. But the performances are incredible. Tim Robbins is fucking sublime. The story is so sad. It's so, I mean, you're just at the edge of your seat the whole time. I cried and I was also genuinely fucking scared. Like there are parts of this movie that journey through the hospital, the scene at the party on the dance floor, like that shit is genuinely scary. I've said it many, many times on the show before. I love that feeling of being off kilter, of not knowing what the hell is going on when he is in the bathtub and then he's back home with his wife and then he's back in the bathtub. Like, I love shit like that. I live for shit like that. I really love this film. I just wish that I could put that one thing that puzzle piece fit. I really, really wish. Because otherwise, for me, this would be a 10. I really love this film. I will watch it again. I will recommend it. It's just that one thing. So on a scale from 1 to 10, violently vibrating visions, I am giving Jacob's Ladder 9 out of 10 violently vibrating visions. I love this story that is being told and the way that it's being told. I think the ding for me is just that. Oh, but no, actually, you know what I mean? It's almost like a System of a Down song where you're vibing during the chorus and then the verses come back and you're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, my God.
We're talking about some real shit.
The prison system.
The prison system. Which, yeah, I love that. But that could have been its own movie. You know what I mean? It's just the two don't go together for me. But I will now open up the floor to you.
No, I understand. I think just the more we talk about it and I agree. I think the performances are great. A lot of what they're doing here is really good. I think it's just the more we talk about it, it does kind of leave me with the sense of, so all of that was for what again? I mean, I get you're telling us, look, you have to accept and let go so you can move on. I like that. And then his son being like, come on, let's go. You know, that was very sad. But it is, I'll be honest, it is them slapping that stamp on the end of the movie. It's like, so was I supposed to pay attention to what happened to them or him accepting so he can move on? Because you kind of just overshadowed what I just watched now. Because now I'm like, damn, all those poor soldiers, this and that. Wait, but this guy was supposed to move on. Well, hold on, though, the soldiers again. And it does feel like, for me anyway, I would have enjoyed maybe, okay, he is putting up a fight and he's dying. Let's have these angels and demons fighting for where he's going to go when he dies. Because it kind of feels like you're trying to do that on the sly, but not really fully committing to it.
Right.
So I do enjoy what's happening here, but I feel like there's just too much that's going on for me to like fully be like, oh, fuck yeah. Like I said, the middle of it did kind of confuse me. When he woke up again with his wife, I wanted him to stay there so bad. When he didn't and he woke up again, I was like, oh, it is bleak. It is very like, I'm like, oh, there's no hope here. And then when you do figure out, oh no, he is just dead. That's what we're dealing with here. It's like, okay, well, you kind of took the punch out of the rest of the movie at the end. I would recommend anyone watch this movie. This was really good, and there was a lot of crazy shit going on. I would watch it again, and like I said, I feel like with time, I would enjoy the movie a little more. As it being my first time watching it and kind of like having to sit with it and live through it, it's a lot. There's a lot going on. But again, I would watch it again. Nothing against the movie. I just feel like there's a couple of things that are going on too much for me to like kind of ignore some things over the other. You know what I mean? But for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, violently vibrating visions, I'm going to give Jacob's Ladder a 7.5. I did enjoy the movie, but I've said before, when things get too sad or when things get too bleak, it's like, I'll stay over here. You know what I mean? I'll watch from the side and see what happens. And I enjoyed a lot of the visuals in this. But again, I feel like we learned too quick what was happening. And then it was, when we got to the end, the punch wasn't as hard. It was just like a soft tap. And it was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
I feel like my thing is just wanting this marriage of all the things that you've introduced.
Yeah.
I want you to find a way to make it work with this potential doping plotline.
Yeah.
Find a way to make it work with what you've started with Jesse.
Yeah.
And then bring it back and bring us to this moment where he goes to heaven with his son. I will tell you, as a non-religious person, I fucking love religious horror.
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
And if you would have leaned into that, I think it would have been a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah.
To have like this idea of that exactly, of this almost a quiet competition.
Yeah.
He's dead. Where's he going to go? And that's kind of what you set up in the thing when he wakes up on the subway.
Yeah.
So I think that that's just an interesting thing that really could have gone somewhere. And it does go somewhere. It just doesn't take all the pieces with it that it introduced.
Yeah.
And as someone who is anti-war, I like your idea of this messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you got to lean into that as well,
Yeah.
in a way that is cohesive.
Totally agree.
So it is very difficult because it does have all those elements of things that I like and appreciate, but it just doesn't find that connective tissue.
Yeah.
But I think that everything else about it, the way that it's shot, the score, the editing, the performances, the cast, like it is so remarkable and so fantastic. It's just the difficulty I find with the narrative.
Yeah.
But I do love, and I love it when so much of your confusion during the thing actually gets either explained away or excused through the logic of a dream of a dying man.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of moments that you're like, now why the fuck is he in bed with Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all of his memories are like a stew right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just all these ingredients, and it's just, this is what it is right now. And that's very interesting to me. But I don't know, man. It's really difficult to score this one because the things that I love about it are so remarkable that you're like, oh, this movie's a 10.
Yeah.
But then those things that drag it down, just of those difficulties, you're like, God damn it.
Exactly.
It can't be perfect. Things rarely are.
Yeah.
So for me, out of 10 violently vibrating visions, I think that I feel good. Look, I'm going to be honest. I was going to give it an 8. I think I'm going to give it an 8.5 because of how ambitious it is with its storytelling, how remarkable it is in so many ways, and I love how much of Jacob's Ladder I see in so many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so influential and in a lot of ways revolutionary in the horror genre, and I got to give it its flowers for that.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
But that doctor needs to calm down. Quit telling me everything.
Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate Jacob's Ladder, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Twitter at the Pod Mortem. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Twitter at Blood and Smoke, at RealStreeter84, and at TravisMWH. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll get bonus content, our monthly schedule, access to our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. And if you're looking for Pod Mortem or Stairhole Productions merch, follow the link in our episode notes. Stay tuned until after the music for a special shout out to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, even as the war within us wages, it is important to remember that we deserve peace. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo! Yeah!
Awesome. A special thank you to
Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis Anissa Hunter, Miguel Myers ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Spooky Mom, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rezak, Molly Gerhard, Armand Spasto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Berry, Brittany Seaman, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montavo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newting, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M, Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G, Dave Burke, Adrian Stakes, Daniel McGinnis, Emma Hagel Kissinger, Valerie G, Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer,
Cookie, Esperanza J, Jason Kyle, OKC, Joshua Rumley, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr, Sahara, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter, Eileen O, Marissa E, Sydney, Henry F, Megan M, Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Katie K, Erica Morin, Cameron S, Nicole Stewart, Tris Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A, Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E, Maggie H, Murder Stina, No Thanks Tom Hanks, Kevin McGonigal, Kristen Marcy, Ori81 Barriqua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J, Jay Rich, Jen Lassiter, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Jean Jacket, Valerie K, Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen,
Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vincent Spirit, Sam J. Green, Jenny May, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Daniel Dickerson, Jordan Gaddis, Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland, Raven, D, Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Price Horror, Clemmy, Nisi Nay, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, 203 Duncan, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Corey Gillen, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Peña, Danielle Wright, Chuck D, Tabitha Thomas, Connie Lingus, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, Jordan McCarthy, Christy Michelle Wilson, Rosalind Harnius, Emily Rance, Amy, Lisa and Kathy, Mike H, Karen with the Y, Christian Sadler, Hannah, Sarah Jack, Casey L, and Evelyn Knight. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
We appreciate each and every one of you, and it's clear that you are our angels.
Oh,
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
away the whole film.
No. Until next time.